The crimson panel lingered before Sam's eyes like a slap. Cold, final, and all too familiar. With a long breath, he pulled the VR headset off his head. His hands trembled, not with fear, but with the frustration gnawing at his chest. For a moment, he wanted nothing more than to hurl the cursed thing across the room. But he didn't. Not this time. Instead, he set it gently on the couch, almost with reverence, before slumping forward. Elbows on his knees, hands hanging loose, he stared at the floor in silence. It was a posture he knew well. Quiet defeat. Routine. His name was Sam Walker, 25, an accountant, a man with no friends, no family, and no ambitions beyond getting through another day of the same cycle. Office, home, eat, sleep, repeat. He wasn't happy, but he was stable. That was enough, at least until Forsaken. The Vermorp had exploded onto the scene like nothing before it. Revolutionary mechanics, breathtaking visuals, stories so vivid they made other games look like clumsy prototypes. The world was alive. The characters, the monsters, the lore, it all breathed. It promised glory, adventure, power. And for everyone else, maybe it delivered. But Sam had chosen differently. On day one, when the difficulty screen appeared, easy, normal, hard, nightmare, hell, his finger went straight to hell. And that single choice became the start of his downfall. In hell difficulty, Forsaken was a different beast. Even the weakest monsters could kill you in one blow. Others, meant for high-level players, roamed freely at the start. For 3 months Sam fought, studied guides, optimized builds, and still couldn't break past the first layer, the so-called tutorial. He had died over 1,000 times. Every death ended with the same merciless message. You have died. And yet, he always came back. This game is garbage, he groaned, running a hand through his hair. Why is the protagonist so damn weak in hell mode? Still, he reached for the headset. Just one more try. Just one more death. Then maybe he'd quit for good. But before his fingers touched it, fwish, a sharp gust cut through the room. Boom. The lights flickered out. Silence swallowed everything. Darkness pressed in, heavy and suffocating. Sam blinked, disoriented, only to realize the headset was gone. Floating in the void before him was a panel. Not crimson this time, but glowing blue. Oh, you think you could do better? Please select your difficulty. Choose carefully, it will determine everything. Easy, normal, hard, nightmare, hell. Sam's throat went dry. This wasn't a menu. This wasn't in the game. It felt too real. And still, his instinct never wavered. Like always, he muttered, pressing hell. The panel pulsed. Are you sure? This is not advised. You will regret it. Sam rolled his eyes. Just do it. Ding. Difficulty chosen. Hell. Pain exploded in his skull like a sledgehammer. His vision blurred. His breath faltered. Fingers clawed at his temples as if he could rip the agony free. The panel dissolved into mist as his knees buckled. He collapsed. The world vanished. And in the silence of that abyss, ding! Sam Walker has been reborn as a Primordial. Difficulty, hell. Arg. I feel like crap. Sam's voice came out rough, cracked. He blinked hard, chest rising and falling as his eyes adjusted to dim light. Sweat clung to his forehead. Only then did he realize he was lying in a bed, a narrow, stiff one that definitely wasn't his. What the hell? He rubbed his temple and pushed himself upright. His head pounded, his senses struggling to catch up. Where the hell am I? The room was silent. Too silent. Not his apartment. Not even his world, if he had to guess. Did I transmigrate? Sam muttered, dragging a hand down his face. The ache behind his eyes felt like needles pressing against his skull. Shit. The last thing he remembered was the difficulty screen. Hell. His finger tapping the option without hesitation. A message about becoming a Primordial. And then pain. Now he was here. He stood slowly, taking in a room. More like a shack than a home. Dusty furniture, cracked ceiling, barely enough space to move without knocking something over. A single dirty window leaked weak light. Then he saw it. A small wooden table stood at the center. On it lay a torn scrap of parchment, stained dark red. Jagged letters sprawled across the middle. Have fun, smiley face. Sam stared at the message for a long moment. His lips parted, then pressed into a line. He didn't know whether to laugh or scream. You've got to be kidding me. Before he could decide, the silence broke. The old television, mounted on the wall, flickered to life with a burst of static. No remote, no warning, just noise and light flooding the room like an omen. Sam turned toward it slowly, and then he saw the headline at the bottom of the screen. The Union Guild has yet again failed to reach the 5th layer. His breath caught. That name, that headline, it was all too familiar. I'm in Forsaken, he whispered, a dry laugh escaping his lips. This is the game world. He sat back down on the bed, hands on his knees, trying to process it. The Forsaken realm, the fracture, the monsters, the awakened. Humanity's last hope. A world built in layers, each more dangerous than the last. In the game, Sam had never even reached the 2nd layer. And here he was inside it. Worse, he'd held difficulty out of habit. If the settings held true, everything around him was now turned up to maximum danger. Great, he muttered. I'm so dead. The screen continued. A man appeared, middle-aged, sharp-jawed, white-haired with golden eyes. His black uniform trimmed in gold and crimson gave him a regal air. The crowd before him listened in silence. I know it may seem grim, the man said, voice steady, and we have lost many good men and women in this cursed realm, but we cannot stop now. He stepped forward, conviction burning in his eyes. As the prophecy foretold, once humanity conquers the 6th layer, we will unlock the path to the universal stage. That is our destiny. That is our one and only goal. Sam furrowed his brows. The universal stage, a name he'd seen only in the deepest parts of the game's lore. A vague, final destination. What did it mean here? The screen flickered and went black. Darkness returned. Well, Sam exhaled, might as well see what the world looks like. He caught his reflection in a cracked mirror hanging crookedly on the wall. He leaned in. He looked young. 18, maybe 19. Black hair, slightly messy. Crimson eyes faintly glowing in the dim light. His face, but younger. And in those eyes, a shimmer. Something ancient, something dangerous. Perfect, he muttered. Of course I look like this. He stepped outside, and for a moment, he forgot how to breathe. The sky stretched pale blue, nearly white, streaked with colossal golden rings orbiting above. They shimmered with silent energy, casting their shadows over the city below. The rings, humanity's last defense. Beyond them lay death. Yeah, Sam murmured, eyes wide. I'm definitely in the game. He wandered for hours, blending into the crowd, piecing things together. He was in Eclipsia, specifically Gravemont City, one of the inner ring strongholds. Safe for now. Beyond lay the outer rings, semi-protected wild zones, dungeons, beasts, ruins. This was where the protagonist began in the game. But was there even a protagonist now? Or was he filling that role? No answers came. By nightfall, Sam returned to the shack. But something had changed. The bloody note was gone. In its place sat a black backpack. He opened it carefully. Inside were two things, a sword and a card. He pulled the card first. Sam Walker, student of Eclipsia Academy. Be ready for the awakening ceremony tomorrow. So that's how I'm getting in, Sam murmured. Tomorrow was the awakening ceremony, the event where candidates were granted access to the Forsaken realm. The true start of the game. Convenient. Too convenient. He set the ID down and turned to the sword. Pitch black, sleek, ominous. When he gripped the hilt, a surge of energy rushed up his arm. Dark, ancient, familiar. Your powers as a primordial resonate with this sword. He dropped it instantly, stumbling back as the aura faded. His chest tightened. It was dangerous, but it was his. Still trembling, Sam lay down. His body was exhausted, his mind spinning. Tomorrow he would attend the awakening ceremony. After that, the Forsaken realm for real. Most people didn't survive long there, especially not on hell difficulty. But he wouldn't sit around waiting for death either. If he was going to die, he'd at least go down fighting. With a final breath, Sam closed his eyes. Sleep took him.
Hey everyone, Firescale Audiobooks here. If there's a novel you'd love to hear more of, you can support us on Patreon or Ko-fi. Depending on your tier, I'll make extra parts just for the stories you're most excited about. Usually I can only upload 4 to 5 parts of each novel, but with your support we can go beyond that. And of course, don't forget to hit subscribe. It helps more than you know.
Morning came faster than expected, and as sunlight streamed through the window, Sam slowly sat up in bed, rubbing the sleep from his eyes. "It's 8 a.m., he muttered to himself after glancing at the digital clock near his bed. The ceremony's at 12. About time. He didn't have a phone right now, so nothing else could be used. His voice was calm, but his heart beat just a little faster. Today was important, not just for him, but for his entire future. Stretching once, he stood up and shuffled toward the small kitchen space in his apartment, casually opening the fridge. Nothing, not even a single slice of bread. Of course. Truthfully, the apartment didn't even feel like a place someone lived in. The walls were bare, the counters nearly dustless, and there was barely any furniture beyond the essentials. It looked and felt more like a placeholder, a place meant to exist for one reason only, to house him after reincarnation. No more, no less. And that was fine. Sam wasn't here to settle into some quiet life. He had plans, big ones. Without wasting another moment, he turned on his heel and walked toward the small table near the edge of his room. He reached for the black ID card resting there and slipped it into his pocket. But his eyes soon drifted toward the object lying next to it, the sword. Yesterday, he dropped at the moment the eerie aura had swirled around him. That dark energy had been overwhelming at the time. But now, he felt like he shouldn't ignore something like that. This sword wasn't normal. It was special, and he couldn't afford to leave it behind. Reaching forward, he firmly grasped the hilt with both hands. The moment his skin made contact, that same dark aura returned, snaking around his arm and swirling upward toward his chest. It was cold, strange, but this time he didn't let go. Fwish, fwish, boom. A sudden pressure pulsed through him as the aura surged, crawling across his body and pressing into his skin. But rather than resist it, his body absorbed every ounce of it. It sank deep into his flesh, his bones, his soul. Ding! A blue panel blinked into existence in front of him. You have received the SSS rank class, Primordial. Sam blinked. For a moment, his mind went blank, then, oh, that single word escaped his lips before he let out a slow exhale. His fingers clenched tighter around the sword's hilt. Thrown into this world without warning, Sam had expected to start from the bottom. Sure, the world was based on a game he used to know, but real life wasn't a game. He had expected to struggle, to adapt, and possibly to fail. But now, all those worries dissolved. Because in the entirety of Forsaken, there was only one other person in the game with an SSS rank class, the protagonist. This means... Sam's eyes widened as his lips slowly curled into a smile. I might actually have a chance. A small one, maybe, but that didn't matter. All he needed was a path forward, and now he had one. The rest was up to him. Before heading out, he decided to do what every player in the game did first after awakening their class. He straightened his posture, looked forward, and spoke the command with confidence. Status. Fwish. Ding. A new panel appeared before his eyes, glowing slightly as it displayed his details. Name, Sam Walker. Class, Primordial SSS. Rank, Novice. Level, 0. Strength, 4. Agility, 3. Constitution, 4. Soul, 6. Affinities, Shadow. Class skills, Spatial Inventory, Primordial Evolution. Skills. Just like I remember, he muttered, inspecting the window closely. It was surreal, seeing it in real life, with his name plastered across the top. But also confirmed that everything in this world operated exactly like the game. He might have started from level 0, but at least he wasn't powerless. His stats were nothing impressive, average at best, but he had class skills like all the others, meaning he wasn't any weaker. Without wasting time, he began to check each skill's description one by one. Spatial Inventory. Description allows the user to store or retrieve object from a personal inventory space. And no, you can't go inside yourself. His eyes then shifted toward the sword in his hand. He hadn't been able to inspect its stats yet. Primordial sword. You cannot view the information of this weapon yet. Locked, as expected, but he was more curious about trying the inventory skill anyway. He focused his mind on the command, spatial inventory. A small void tore itself open in front of him. It looked barely large enough to store a book, let alone a sword. But as he moved the blade closer, the void adjusted, stretching to accommodate the sword's full length. The moment it touched the edge, the sword vanished into the inventory. Sam tried the retrieval next. He reached inside the void while thinking about the sword, and sure enough, the hilt materialized in his hand like magic. Convenient, he said quietly. Very convenient. Next, he turned his attention to the affinity section, which displayed only one element. Shadow affinity. Description: you are born from shadows and live in them. Leave none of them standing in the light. The hell does that even mean? He mumbled. Still, he then quickly moved on to his second-class skill. Primordial evolution. Description: once per day, you can select one of your skills and evolve it to its next stage. He noticed that none of these class skills had any rank, meaning they couldn't be upgraded. Still, the last skills sounded extremely useful, but unfortunately he had no skills to evolve just yet. That would have to wait. Done with preparations, Sam grabbed the black backpack resting on his table and tossed it into the spatial inventory as well. With everything stored, he stepped toward the door, pausing just once to look back at the quiet, empty apartment. Somehow, he had a feeling he wouldn't be coming back. Oh well, he shrugged as he left. It took a bullet train to get to his destination, Eclipsia Academy, located in Ashbourne City. Sam had no cash on him, but flashing his ID card at the station was all it took for the guards to let him pass. Just like the game, he thought as he boarded. Awakeners are privileged. The trip lasted around 3 hours, as the train was much faster than any other available on his original Earth. Once he arrived, he made his way through the city, eventually stopping before the academy gates. The entrance was flooded with students, all dressed in sleek uniforms, all buzzing with nervous excitement. The new students didn't have access to their abilities yet, not until they officially stepped into the Forsaken Realm. That made things safe, at least for now. But as Sam moved toward the main plaza, whispers began to drift into his ears. Wait, he actually showed up? Is he crazy or something? I thought he gave up. Didn't he go to a different city? What's he doing here now? Sam's eyes narrowed slightly as he glanced around. He noticed the stares, the quiet judgment, the curiosity, the disbelief. He had no idea what they were talking about. Still, he didn't stop. He walked toward the large gathering ahead, where a tall stage had been set up. Atop it stood a man with violet hair and a long staff in hand. He seemed to be speaking to another person beside him, but his voice didn't carry far. Sam ignored the looks and murmurs, choosing instead to find a place to stand among the crowd. If this followed the same script as the game, then he already knew how the next hour would unfold. It was just a matter of time. He waited, and sure enough, 30 minutes later, boom, ding, a sudden explosion roared into the sky as the man on stage launched a fireball upward. The bright light flared, forcing all heads to turn toward him. The crowd instantly went silent. With a smile, the man looked over the gathered students. Let's begin then, he announced. Today marks the most important day of your lives. And with those words, the ceremony officially started. All of you, the man on stage said, his purple hair catching the light. This will be the most important day of your lives. His voice was calm, but powerful enough to silence the crowd. Every student in the plaza turned their full attention to him. Sam, standing somewhere in the middle, noticed how mixed the expressions around him were. Some were filled with anticipation, others gripped by nervousness, and a few were even shaking slightly. Today, the man continued, you will finally be able to enter the Forsaken Realm and challenge it. A heavy silence followed his words, as if everyone knew the weight behind them. As many of you already know, only a small number of people ever get the chance to enter the realm. That's because you need to awaken a class, something that only 1 in 50 people are capable of. He paused, letting that fact settle into the hearts of the students. In addition to that, the danger inside is much greater than you think. Many of those who enter never even make it past the first layer. Sam smirked faintly to himself, hands tucked in his pockets. Tell me about it, he thought, remembering all the times he failed during his countless attempts in the game. I practically lived in that first layer. Still, everything felt familiar. This moment, this speech, even the nervous energy that filled the plaza, it was all just like in the game. The man on stage, the principal of Eclipse Academy, Oliver, was simply doing his job, explaining the history and importance of the Forsaken Realm, just like he did in the game's prologue. The Forsaken Realm appeared suddenly, without warning. The principal continued. Humanity struggled to deal with the threats it unleashed until people like you, awakeners, emerged. Strong individuals who could face the dangers within. You are humanity's best hope. Another pause, and then, many of you may fall. But those who survive, those who prove themselves, may be noticed by powerful guilds. You may be recruited, trained, and given the resources to become legends. He let the words sink in before finally finishing. This is your turning point, your chance to rise. Now, we will prepare to send you all to the first rift. From there, you'll be on your own. Prove your worth, and maybe, just maybe, you'll become the one who conquers the realm. A moment later, the principal raised a hand and called someone over. Just outside the academy gates, dozens of large black buses were already parked, waiting for the students. You can't access the Forsaken Realm on your own, at least not yet. This first entry is special. But once you've entered once, you'll gain the ability to return whenever you wish, and more importantly, your true powers will awaken. The crowd began to move. Most students quickly made their way toward the buses, carrying only small bags and nervous expressions. Sam followed, without a word, blending in with the rest as an extra. Not that it mattered. He was here now, and he was ready to test out what the Primordial class could really do. Sam climbed into one of the buses and sat by the window, resting his head against the cool glass as the vehicle hummed to life. He closed his eyes. He had no allies, no special connections, no fanfare, just a sword, a strange class, and memories of a game he barely even started. Even the heroines and side characters from the game were unknown to him. He'd spent so much time trying to survive the first layer that he never actually progressed into the deeper parts of the story. He remembered their names, but not their personalities or roles. In a way, it felt like going in blind. He would be completely on his own. "Hey, bud, mind if we sit here?" A voice broke his thoughts, and Sam opened his eyes slowly. In front of him stood a group of students, 4 of them to be precise. The one speaking had a wide, smug grin. Sam's gaze shifted to the empty seats nearby, then back to the guy. "There are plenty of other spots," he replied dryly. "Take one of them." The group's friendly smiles quickly turned into sneers. "You got some nerve," the red-haired leader of the group said, stepping closer. "Talking back like that when you don't even have a class? You really think you'll survive?" Sam blinked. "They actually think I don't have a class. But if so, what am I even doing in this academy? Maybe whoever put me into this body before made it so that I didn't awaken anything which would explain the hostility." Either way, Sam didn't flinch. "I don't have time for you," he said quietly, turning his eyes back to the window. "If you're so confident in your powers, then prove it in the realm." The words clearly struck a nerve, and the group looked like they were about to attack. But thankfully, the bus was too cramped for anything serious. After a few seconds of angry muttering, they walked away, taking seats nearby. Sam wasn't worried. People like them barked the loudest, but rarely bit. His mind was already somewhere else, focused on what awaited him inside the realm. The ride was long. Nearly 5 hours passed before they finally arrived. No fast travel button in real life. Sam thought to himself. They had officially left the inner ring of the continent and entered the first, outer ring, a much wilder, less developed region. The sky overhead was clear, and open fields stretched for miles. But in the distance, ruins loomed like forgotten memories. Then came the announcement. We have arrived. The first rift is just ahead. Sam straightened up, his eyes narrowing as he looked outside. The buses pulled to a stop, and one by one, the students stepped out onto the road. Good luck. May the will of the gods be with you. That was the last thing the students heard before the buses drove away, leaving them behind. Sam walked forward with the others. In the center of the ruined stone structures stood the rift, a shimmering, unstable portal, swirling with blue energy that distorted the air around it. It was almost beautiful, in a way. Here it is, Sam muttered, stepping forward. Once I go in, there's no going back. Each person would be dropped into the realm in one of the instances of the beginning area. There was no way to coordinate, no team-up function, not unless you happen to find someone else inside. For now, it was pure survival. One by one, the students walked into the portal. Some did so with confidence, others hesitated, but all eventually entered. Sam was among the last. He approached slowly, feeling his heart beat faster as he got closer. The portal pulsed, flaring slightly. You have a bad feeling about this. He saw the message appear in his vision, but ignored it. Whatever fear it was trying to instill, he didn't have time for that. Sam reached forward and touched the portal with his fingers. It felt like dipping into cold water, and then, in the blink of an eye, he was gone. The world around him twisted. For a moment, it felt like he was being pulled apart and stitched back together at the same time. Then suddenly, thud, he hit the ground. Quickly, Sam got to his feet, scanning the area. You have entered the first layer of the Forsaken Realm. You are currently in Novice Ruins. Stone walls surrounded him. The hall was narrow, lit by old, flickering torches, and the air reeked of something foul. The ground was cracked and uneven. Perfect, Sam muttered, slapping his cheeks and shaking off the dizziness. Time to see what I can actually do. Ding! You have entered the Forsaken Realm, and thus now awaken the powers of your SSS rank class. Ding! Ding! Congratulations to Sam Walker for obtaining the skill, Basic Sword Technique. Congratulations to Sam Walker for obtaining the skill, Shadow Bullets. Sam stared at the notifications, a smile slowly spreading across his face. Looks like I'm not powerless after all. His journey had officially begun. Sam stared at the skill descriptions hovering in front of him, brow furrowed slightly. These were his first two skills, the foundation of his journey inside the Forsaken Realm. Both of them were basic and from the common rank. The ranks for items and skills in Forsaken were spread across 6 categories: common, uncommon, rare, epic, legendary, and Forsaken. And yet, Sam didn't feel disappointed. These'll do, he muttered under his breath. Let's see what I can make of them. He opened up his hand and summoned his spatial inventory, watching as a dark rift swirled into existence in the air before him. Reaching inside, he pulled out the Primordial sword. The moment his fingers closed around the hilt, a low hum echoed through the air. A pulse of dark energy surged through the blade and wrapped itself around his arm. The shadow aura didn't just swirl this time. It moved with purpose, almost like it was recognizing him. Sam blinked. Is this resonating with me? A soft chime followed his words. Primordial sword. Rank, Forsaken. Current affinities, Shadow. Description, an extremely powerful weapon that can only be wielded by a primordial being. It draws power from your unlocked affinities and grows stronger with each one. So that's why my first affinity was Shadow, Sam whispered, thinking back to the list of abilities granted by his class. As a primordial, he didn't just have one affinity, he had the potential to unlock several. But Shadow was the first one, the starting point. His blade matched that perfectly. Then another thought came to mind. If you remember correctly, he had one more core ability besides Spatial Inventory and Shadow Affinity. Right, Primordial Evolution. He opened his status window and navigated to the class skills section, pulling up the second entry. Primordial Evolution. Description: once per day, you can select one of your skills and evolve it to its next stage. This was the one Sam had been waiting for, the skill that gave him a real chance. back in the game, and thus probably in this world too, evolving skills was incredibly rare and difficult. Most people spent months, sometimes years, just trying to raise their proficiency high enough to trigger an upgrade. It required perfect usage, relentless repetition, and deep understanding of a skill. But now, with this ability, Sam could bypass all of that once per day anyway. You look at the two skills he had: basic sword technique and shadow bullets. Between the two, the choice was clear. Shadow bullets will take some getting used to, and I need to get a handle on close-range combat if I want to survive, he reasoned. His gaze returned to the primordial sword, resting in his grip. It was powerful, yes, but it was just a tool. His technique would determine whether he survived or died. Sam summoned his skill panel again and focused on the glowing square labeled Basic Sword Technique. "All right," he said quietly. "Let's try this out." A ripple of dark energy spread across his body, then surged toward the skill panel. The skill icon pulsed once, twice, and then, ding! Basic Sword Technique, Common, has evolved into Intermediate Sword Technique, Uncommon. Sam grinned as the new notification appeared. He didn't even need to test it. He could already feel the change. His grip on the sword felt steadier, more natural. His stance shifted subtly, and muscle memory that hadn't been there a moment ago suddenly began to kick in. Then he checked the cooldown on his class skill. Primordial Evolution, next use, 23 hours, 59 minutes, and 59 seconds. So he would only be able to use it again tomorrow. Fair enough. Still, even one upgrade like that was a huge head start. "All right," Sam muttered as he adjusted his grip on the sword. "Time to move." He couldn't afford to sit around and overthink. The longer he waited, the more likely it was that others would make progress, and that the realm itself would shift. The Forsaken realm was notorious for changing its layout and difficulty depending on how many Awakeners were inside. He moved deeper into the ruins, steps light but steady. The torches flickering on the stone walls gave off a dim, greenish hue, casting shadows that danced as he walked. This was the Novice Ruins, a common spawn zone in the first layer, but not one to underestimate. Monsters in Hell mode weren't weak cannon fodder. They were agile, vicious, and fast, in addition to having more health and strength. And worse, they work together. Shadow affinity as a start is good, but I'll need more if I want to fight off actual threats, Sam thought, keeping his eyes peeled. His thoughts drifted again to the other affinities he might unlock later. Would it come with experience? Combat? Or would he need to find something like a trial to trigger them? There were too many unknowns. But thinking wasn't going to answer any of them. "GRR!" A growl echoed through the corridor, low and wet. Sam stopped walking. His hand gripped the sword tighter as he turned toward the noise. More sounds followed, skittering feet, raspy breathing, weapons clanging softly. And then he saw them. 5 goblins, crouched low and snarling. Each one was armed. 2 had jagged daggers, one a cracked wooden club, another a rusted spear, and the last a short bow, already drawn. They were gathered around a corpse. A human, judging by the boots and blood-soaked uniform. An Awakener who had clearly failed. Sam's expression darkened. So this is how it starts. The goblins noticed him and shrieked. One pointed at him, letting out a harsh screech as they all turned toward him with glowing eyes and crazed expressions. Sam stepped forward, adjusting his footing. He took a breath and exhaled slowly, focusing everything on the battle. "You little bastards drove me insane in the game," he muttered. "Let's see how you fare now." Ruined Goblins. Level 1. "Here we go," Sam sighed before taking his stance. And at that moment, the first goblin lunged with its dagger. Yet Sam didn't even flinch. To his surprise, it felt slow. Very slow. Why is it moving like that, he wondered. In the game, these goblins were notorious for being fast and annoying. But now, as it dashed toward him, it felt sluggish. Time didn't slow. Sam had simply become faster. He reacted on instinct, guided by his intermediate sword technique. Swish! Slash! One clean movement, and the goblin's head flew off its shoulders, hitting the ground with a dull thud. Sam's eyes widened a little. One shot. Even for the in-game protagonist, it usually took 2 to 3 hits to kill. The fact that he could kill them instantly meant that his class was extremely powerful. Sam's gaze landed on the Primordial sword, noticing the shadow aura pulsing around it. The others shrieked, furious. The second and third goblins charged, screaming in unison. Sam parried one of their attacks and swept low, cutting through their legs, and then spinning to finish them both off in a single motion. Blood sprayed. Bodies dropped. But he wasn't done. Another goblin was already circling behind him while the one with the bow began to draw its arrow. Sam's eyes narrowed. He lifted his hand. Shadow bullets. A pulse of dark aura shot up around his fingers, and in less than a second, a tiny orb of compressed shadow formed above his palm. He then set his target and aimed. Bang! The bullet ripped through the air, almost invisible to the eye. Boom! It pierced the goblin archer right through the forehead, dropping it instantly. The last goblin screamed and lunged from behind. But Sam pivoted sharply and drove his sword forward. Crunch! Steel met bone. The goblin slumped. And just like that, silence returned to the hallway. Sam stood alone amidst 5 fresh corpses, blood seeping into the cracks of the stone beneath his feet. Breathing calmly, he lowered his weapon. He had survived his first fight in the Forsaken Realm, but he knew better than to celebrate. This was just the beginning. The real threats hadn't even shown up yet. "Oh wow," Sam muttered with a grin, eyes glinting as the panel faded. "That's actually really good." In a game mode where a single mistake could mean instant death, any extra information, even if vague, was invaluable. It wasn't just a typical appraisal type skill. It tapped into the deeper mechanics of this world, almost like it was reading danger from the world's own memory and whispering warnings into his mind. Sam instinctively knew it was different from the others. Like his primordial evolution or spatial inventory, this skill didn't have a rank listed. That usually meant one of 2 things. It would either evolve directly alongside him or function based on circumstances. Either way, it was now part of his toolkit, a guide to help him stay alive. He looked back at the monsters still crawling toward him, some goblins hissing through their crude weapons, and 4 slimes wobbling forward in that unsettling, glistening way. As he glanced at them, fresh text appeared next to their name and level. Ruined goblins. Level 2. Description: the most basic goblins you can find. Weak alone, but annoying in large groups. Hull mode analysis: honestly, just don't get hit. You can kill them in 1 or 2 strikes. Ruined slimes. Level 2. Description: can absorb monsters and awakeners to grow stronger. Nearly invincible unless you destroy their core. Hell mode analysis: if you get touched, it's going to be a painful game over. Avoid them. Sam let out a breathless chuckle. It wasn't that the panels told him anything groundbreaking. He could have guessed this much from experience. But there was something comforting about having a second mind confirm it for him. It was like the skill was reminding him, this world is real now, and it wants you dead. All right then, he whispered, raising his blade. The primordial sword pulsed faintly in his grip, its surface dark and smooth, almost as if it were alive. And in a way, Sam was beginning to believe that it was. The goblins screeched, raising their weapons. The slimes followed, their gelatinous bodies twitching with stored magic. "Let's go, you bastards," Sam growled, planting his foot and charging. His body moved faster than most novices could follow. The months of attempts, the way his primordial class strengthened his base stats, he could feel all of it kicking in. Fwish! His blade carved the first goblin in half before it could react, its body collapsing into 2 with a wet smack. Still goes down in 1 hit. Good, Sam thought. The moment the blade finished its arc, Sam pivoted and spun, using the momentum to cut through another 3 goblins that had closed in from the left. Fwish! Slash! Thunk! Their bodies hit the ground as blood pooled around him. The 5th goblin tried to jab a spear at him, but Sam knocked it aside and countered with a brutal slice that split the goblin from shoulder to hip. 5 down in seconds. But as he turned, Sam caught the motion, something glimmering in the corner of his eye, a slime. Fwish! One of the blue slimes was trembling violently, its inner core pulsing, magic gathering. Crap! Sam cursed. He dashed to the side, narrowly avoiding a blue orb the size of his head. It zipped past where he'd just been and slammed into one of the goblin corpses behind him. Bam! The goblin's body melted on the spot, flesh disintegrating as a foul steam rose. A chilling sound like sizzling acid filled the hallway. Right, don't get touched. The hell mode analysis hadn't exaggerated. More slimes began to tremble, preparing their attacks. But Sam wasn't going to let them finish. Shadow bullets. He extended a hand, gathering his soul power. 3 thin tendrils of darkness twisted into bullets and launched forward. Bang, bang, bang. Each one found its mark, crashing through the slime's translucent forms and hitting their glowing cores dead on. They cracked and shattered like glass, and the creatures immediately lost form, collapsing into pools of lifeless gel. Sam exhaled but didn't slow down. Another goblin was already swinging. He ducked, swept its legs with a kick, and while the creature was airborne, slashed upward, cleaving it cleanly. The last slime tried to fire again. Sam dove forward, rolled under the shot, and, as he rose, pointed his finger. Bang! Another shadow bullet ripped through the core. The slime died on the spot. He had done all of this without letting a single drop of sweat. This is exciting, he thought, a grin creeping onto his face. The thrill of battle, of moving with purpose, of using everything he had to survive, it was addictive. And yet, in the middle of that feeling, slash! Sam swung his sword at one of the 2 remaining goblins, but for the first time, it actually managed to block it. And then, before he could react, slash! A blade caught his back. Arr! Sam grunted in pain, stumbling forward. The last of the 2 goblins had flanked him. Blood trickled down his back, warmth spreading under his shirt. Sam didn't hesitate. He turned with a snarl and decapitated the one behind him in a clean stroke. Then he stepped forward and slammed his foot into the last goblin's chest, knocking it to the floor. Thunk! Before it could recover, he drove the primordial sword down into its body, pinning it to the stone ground. Fucking little shits, he muttered, standing tall, even with blood dripping down his back. That was hell mode. That was this world. Even the weakest monsters could kill you if you lost focus. Sam stood still, watching as the blood ran down the blade. Then he raised the primordial sword. Its surface rippled, and the mouth returned, jagged teeth opening wide. Dozens of black tendrils shot out, snaking toward the corpses of both goblins and slimes. They pierced the monsters, extracted their cores, and pulled them back. Absorbing, Sam felt it instantly. The moment the cores were devoured, the aura around his sword pulsed stronger, and more importantly, the pain in his back started to vanish. He turned his head, lifting his shirt slightly to glance over his shoulder. Where the wound had been, there was now only a fading dark flame. What the hell? He blinked. As a primordial, absorbing will heal you. Oh, he said aloud. That's actually good to know. He straightened, no longer bleeding, and swung the blood off his blade. All right, Sam said, voice firm. Time to get out of the novice ruins. Can't slack off now. He broke into a sprint, rushing through the stone hallways. More monsters appeared from time to time, but none of them could slow him. His reflexes were sharper, movements cleaner, and his attacks faster. Each time he killed, he absorbed. The tendrils would return, the cores would vanish into the blade, and the power would seep into him. And then finally, ding! Congratulations to Sam Walker for leveling up to level 2 of the novice rank. Moving, but he grinned at the notification. Finally, took long enough. He glanced at his hand. He didn't feel much different, but something had shifted. His grip was firmer. His steps were lighter. His aura darker. Still, it had taken a lot of monsters just to reach level 2. Guess it's because of my class. Probably takes more to grow. But he wasn't complaining. His class, after all, was powerful. Even at the lowest level, he could fight on par with monsters 2 or 3 levels above him. He kept going deeper into the ruins. And then, just as he turned a corner. He heard it. Voices. Not growls or howls. Not goblin shrieks or monster cries. But human voices. Clear. Familiar. Someone's nearby, Sam muttered, slowing down, gripping his blade tighter. "What are we going to do?" One of the Awakeners asked, his voice strained with nerves. "That boss is blocking the exit to the ruins." "I know," another said, pacing anxiously. "We already sent 5 people inside, and none of them came back. Are we supposed to just charge in together now?" "Hell no," a third interrupted sharply. "That's not normal. I think it's a mutation or something. There's no way a basic novice ruins boss would be that strong." "What? A mutation already? At this stage?" Another shouted in disbelief. "That's way too early. How the hell are we supposed to survive something like that?" While the group argued in panic, Sam turned the corner and finally caught sight of the group. Around 20 Awakeners stood bunched up at the edge of a long hallway, all of them hesitating before a thick mist of silver that marked the path forward. The exit lay just beyond that mist, but not a single one of them was willing to step through. From the looks of it, they hadn't arrived together. It was more like different students from all over had converged here one by one, naturally meeting up at the same place once they'd reached the boss room. All of these people had entered through the same rift as Sam did, meaning they're all either students from Eclipse Academy or somewhere affiliated. Sam already knew the rules. To leave the novice ruins, the boss monster had to be defeated. There was no backtracking. And if no one beat it, they were all trapped. As he approached, some of the Awakeners turned toward him. They took one look at his face, and their expression soured. "Ugh, it's Sam," someone muttered. "He's the one without a class, right?" Another scoffed. "Yeah, great. Like he's going to help us. Waste of space. We're screwed if we're relying on that guy." Sam heard them, but he didn't respond. He kept walking with a neutral expression, spinning the Primordial sword in his hand casually as if their words meant nothing. In truth, they didn't. They didn't know who he really was or what he could do. "I don't have time to wait," he thought. "The longer I waste here, the less time I have to grow. I'll handle it myself." None of these people looked familiar, which meant none of them were important. Just background extras in the story of someone else. Or perhaps in his own. He stepped forward, calmly making his way through the group. "I'll go," he said plainly, stopping in front of the hallway wrapped in silver mist. The Awakeners instinctively stepped back to make room. Something about Sam's expression, the unnatural red in his eyes, or maybe the slow movement of the shadowy aura wrapped around his body, it unsettled them. Without saying another word, Sam walked straight into the mist. They stared after him. He actually went in alone. "He's insane. He's not coming back," one muttered darkly. "Did surviving this long get to his head? He's useless. No class, no power, he's done for." Sam didn't hear their voices anymore, but he didn't need to. Their expressions, their tone, even the tension they gave off earlier all said the same thing. They thought he was weak. And yet, somehow, Sam had been enrolled in the most prestigious Awakener Academy in the continent, without a class and without powers. The encounter on the bus, the way people talked about him, everything made it clear. "Whoever put me here is definitely enjoying this," he thought. Eventually, the silver mist parted. On the other side was a large, enclosed chamber that resembled the rest of the ruins in structure, but was far more damaged. Stone pillars had collapsed, and blood painted the broken ground. The faint smell of decay filled the air. Then he saw it. At the far end of the room stood the boss, a twisted fusion of goblin and slime, standing nearly as tall as Sam himself, with blue, gelatinous armor wrapped tightly around its body. Its eyes were wide, yellow, and filled with madness. Slimeoblin, mutated boss. Level 3. Description: a fusion between a goblin and a slime, the two merging to become something stronger. Sam narrowed his eyes. Well, that's not normal. He knew what this was. Mutations. In rare, unpredictable moments, monsters could evolve or merge after consuming enough power. Some happened through overwhelming power, some by accident, and others as a result of instability within a layer. Whatever the reason, mutated bosses were rare and deadly. It was extremely rare, but in some cases, There were times when all the Awakeners who entered the first layer were wiped out since they couldn't defeat a boss blocking their path. Sam couldn't recall if this monster had existed in the original game, or if it did, it had never shown up so early. But here it was, a creature so strong that even 20 awakened students hadn't dared to face it. Sam looked again, focusing on the final line of the status screen. Hell mode analysis. The goblin wears the slime as a shield. You won't hurt it with normal strikes, but it's still a slime. Its weakness is the same. He blinked and looked closer. Inside the creature's body, faintly moving and pulsing, were 3 small cores, glowing dimly. Its life force. All right, he said with a grin. No point wasting time. He raised his hand and snapped his fingers. Instantly, 5 shadow bullets formed from the dark aura that coiled around him. Each one cost a soul, he thought. Good thing I collected enough. He launched the bullets with sharp precision. The boss sensed danger and tried to move, but it didn't do it fast enough. Bang! Bang! Boom! 2 of the bullets struck true, shattering 2 of the 3 slime cores. The armor rippled, shuddered, and thinned. The creature screamed in pain, a garbled, unnatural sound. It staggered, the slime reacting wildly. But Sam wasn't done yet. The Slimeoblin lunged, covering the distance between them in a single, sudden movement. It didn't wield a weapon, but the slime surrounding it lashed out like acid-filled tentacles. Sam dodged the first swing, then the second, but a stray drop splashed against his shoulder. Ah, damn it! The burn was immediate. His jacket sizzled and tore as the corrosive slime began to melt through. You son of a... He fired again. Bang! The third and final core shattered, and in an instant, the slime armor collapsed. The creature's mutated protection splashed uselessly to the ground. Now, standing in front of him was just a goblin, tall, strong for a kind, but unarmed and exposed. The Slimeoblin's eyes widened. It was vulnerable. It had managed to kill all the other humans that came so easily after all, so why? But Sam didn't hesitate. Slash! His sword cleaved straight through its neck. Blood sprayed across the broken stones as the creature's body collapsed and dissolved in crimson particles. You killed me hundreds of times before, Sam muttered. I'm just paying you back. Ding! Absorbing. Black tendrils slithered out from the mouth on Sam's sword, piercing into the remains and dragging in the goblin's core. A surge of shadow energy pulsed through him, and the burn on his shoulder faded instantly. He exhaled, feeling the power settle in his body. A little stronger, a little faster, and then he noticed something on the ground. Not just random drops like crude daggers or rusted armor. This was different. He crouched down and picked it up. A skill scroll, he muttered, lifting the golden-lined parchment. Perfect, but that wasn't all. The moment Sam examined the scroll, something else activated. Just like with monsters, the faint black aura around his body pulsed softly. Hell mode analysis was activating on its own again. So it really does work on more than just monsters, Sam thought to himself as the next panel unfolded in his mind like a mental projection. Hell mode analysis. If the power of the incoming attack is too strong, the slime barrier will shatter and the hit will pass through. This was information that hadn't even been hinted at in the main description. Without Hell mode analysis, Sam never would have known it. In fact, most people probably wouldn't. It was crucial to know because for a skill to evolve or become stronger, the user had to fully understand its mechanics, its limits, strengths, and hidden details. Only then could it reach its potential. Understanding a skill in depth was the first step toward affinity and eventual evolution. With that thought, Sam opened the scroll, placing his hand over the smooth surface. It pulsed with a faint glow before the dark aura enveloped it, then melted into his palm. The scroll crumbled into fragments of light. A soft chime echoed inside his mind. Congratulations to Sam Walker for learning the skill. Slime Barrier, Common. At the same moment he learned the skill, the silver mist that had blocked the path behind him dissolved. The fog cleared completely, exposing the rest of the Awakeners to the exit of the ruins. The system's rule was clear. Only by defeating the boss could you leave the dungeon. Now that Sam had slain the boss, the way was open again. As the mist vanished, he heard voices. Dozens of them. He turned to find a crowd of stunned awakeners staring at him, jaws slack, eyes wide in disbelief. Holy shit, he actually beat the boss? No fucking way. What? Alone? More people had arrived during the short time his battle lasted. It had been less than 2 minutes, yet the number of awakeners outside the lair had more than doubled. He hadn't noticed it before, but apparently word had spread that the boss was unbeatable, and Sam had just defeated it. They couldn't see the battle because of the silver mist, but the fact the boss wasn't here anymore confirmed it. Yet even though Sam would have felt happy about this, especially after gaining a skill, oh, wonderful, Sam's eyes narrowed. After all, the first person to step into the boss room now that the mist had cleared was him, the red-haired bastard from the bus, the same guy who had tried to intimidate Sam. He actually beat a mutated boss by himself? No way, it was level 3. I heard bosses usually vary, but if a mutated one already showed up here, what's waiting for us later? Many were whispering in fear, eyes darting toward the hallways beyond the ruins. The implications of Sam's victory had shaken them. But more than that, they couldn't ignore what it meant. Sam, the guy they all dismissed as weak, had done something none of them dared to even attempt. They couldn't explain it. Had he awakened his class during the battle? Used an item? Was he hiding his power all along? Either way, it was obvious now. Sam Walker wasn't the same as the person they thought he was. Still, not everyone accepted the truth. So you beat a weak boss and suddenly think you're above the rest of us? The red-haired man stepped forward, his presence loud and aggressive. His feet cracked the stone floor as he moved, aura blazing with deep red energy. The pressure he gave off wasn't weak, that much was clear. But Sam didn't flinch. He simply gave him a quiet glance. Sam pulled up his status window with a thought. Name, Sam Walker. Class, Primordial. Rank, Novice. Level 1-2. Strength, 5-6. Agility, 4-5. Constitution, 5-6. Soul, 8-10. Affinities, Shadow. Class skills, Spatial Inventory, Primordial Evolution, Hell Mode Analysis. Skills, Intermediate Sword Technique, Uncommon. Shadow Bullets, Common. Slime Barrier, Common. He was satisfied with the progress, but he didn't stop there. He also scanned the status of the red-haired man standing across from him. Name, Morgan Lockman. Rank, Novice. Level, 3. Strength, 10. Agility, 5. Constitution, 7. Soul, 2. Sam muttered. The man had a high level, but his soul stat was pitifully low. Probably a brute-type class. A straightforward brawler. Strong and durable, but lacking in technique or deeper insight. Then, right beneath that panel, Hell Mode Analysis revealed its verdict. Hell Mode Analysis, typical young master. He'll keep harassing you for no reason whatsoever. You can either ignore him forever or... Sam raised an eyebrow as the final line appeared. Kill him, smiley face. He couldn't help but grin a little. The truth was inside an area or a layer of the Forsaken Realm, deaths weren't tracked. If someone died here, no official record or video existed. Just rumors and survivor words, which meant one thing. If someone tried to start trouble, they had to be prepared to pay the price. Fwish! Sam lowered his body and shifted into his battle stance, eyes sharp. Hell Mode Analysis. Kill him it is, then. Sam nodded once. You want to fight me? You'll regret challenging me. Morgan snarled as red aura surged around his fists. His confidence was overflowing, but it was misplaced. Without warning, he leapt into the air and spun before slamming his entire weight down with a full-strength punch. Power! Smash! Boom! The entire floor trembled violently. Dust exploded upward, and small cracks shot through the stone beneath them. But Sam had already jumped back, avoiding the impact without a scratch. He landed lightly a few meters away, eyes still locked onto Morgan. My turn, Sam said flatly. Fwish! In a flash, he crossed the distance, drawing his sword and slashing at Morgan with swift, precise motion. Morgan's eyes widened. It wasn't the attack itself that scared him, but the sheer aura around Sam right now was so intimidating that Morgan thought of running away. But of course, he knew he couldn't. Gore, get the fuck away from me. Morgan screamed, barely dodging to the side and countering with a furious fist glowing with crimson energy. This time, Sam didn't move. Morgan's punch flew forward, aimed straight for Sam's chest, and struck something. Splush! A strange resistance met his knuckles. A gelatinous wall formed in an instant. Slime barrier had activated. The hell! The blue slime had absorbed the blow completely, protecting Sam from what could have been a fatal hit. And that was all the opening Sam needed. Without a shred of hesitation. Slash! His blade cut through the air like lightning, clean and merciless. Morgan's head separated from his body. There was a heartbeat of stunned silence as his body stood upright, then collapsed to the floor, head rolling across the hallway with a hollow thud. Oh my God! Some in the crowd gasped and stepped back, faces pale. They had never seen an Awakener killed right in front of them before. Not this early, not like this. Morgan attacked and lost. That's it. Yeah. In the Forsaken Realm, the strong survive. He lost. The rest accepted it with a cold practicality. The rules of the world were brutal, and it was better to learn them now than later. Sam stood in the center of the room, expression neutral, eyes unreadable. He didn't feel anything. Not regret, not fear, not pride. Just necessity. He knew the truly important people wouldn't appear here. Not yet. The first layer was like a filter, sorting out the weak from those with potential. The heroines, the core characters of the world, the powerful forces moving behind the curtain, they were either deeper inside or in separate instances entirely. This wasn't a real stage. Not yet. For now, his only goal was growth. So, without another word, Sam turned away from Morgan's corpse and began walking toward the hallway. The exit to the ruins finally open and waiting for him. But then, just as he took his first step out, ding, a familiar sound rang inside his head. Absorbing. Sam froze. Wait, what? His eyes widened slightly. Didn't it already absorb the boss monster? He paused, confused, until the realization hit him. Oh, he understood exactly what it meant. Ding. Congratulations to Sam Walker for leveling up to level 3 of the novice rank. It had been an hour since Sam entered the forest of the first layer, and in that short time, he'd already carved a path through wave after wave of monsters. His movements were steady, methodical, almost mechanical as he went from one enemy to the next, wasting no time in between. He had started with the level 3 black bears and wild boars, hacking them down with ease thanks to the raw power of his Primordial sword. Their tough hides weren't much of a defense against a blade that could cut through steel like it was paper. But then came the level 4 enemies, nature wolves and green snakes, and that's when things started requiring more caution. They weren't just stronger. They were smarter, faster, and far more dangerous. Nature wolves. Level 4. Hell mode analysis. Vines can come out of their bodies to surprise awakeners. Don't get entangled by them. Green snake. Level 4. Hell mode analysis. Extremely poisonous. Only go into close range if you can't hit them with your bullets. Sam had taken notice. His hell mode analysis was giving him more valuable information. It wasn't much, but even a short description could make a big difference. A single warning about a hidden ability or a poison was sometimes all that separated life from death. Even still, Sam didn't falter. He killed and absorbed every monster he came across, one after another. And with each core he took in, he could feel something building inside him, a growing power, a pressure around his body that seemed to thicken like a dense fog. His steps didn't slow. If anything, he moved faster. Slash, bang, slash. Every time his blade swung, a monster fell. His progress through the forest was nothing short of a massacre. This wasn't just about strength. Sam had other things to worry about too, things like his reputation, connections to guilds, and the Awakener Association, but all of that could wait. For now, there was only one goal: clear the layer. That was when he heard it. Grrrr. A heavy, guttural roar shook the forest, deeper than any other he had heard since arriving. Sam's eyes narrowed. A boss, he muttered, instantly shifting into a ready stance. He spun around and scanned his surroundings. And then, just a moment later, a massive wolf crashed through the trees. Wolf King, boss. Level 4. Description: a giant wolf that commands all the others in this forest. Hell mode analysis: it has other wolves hiding nearby. Don't lose focus. It stood at least 2 meters tall, with coarse gray fur laced with aura. Its glowing red eyes locked onto Sam with undeniable aggression. The killing intent it radiated was unmistakable. Sam didn't flinch. "Here we go, little puppy," he smirked. Meanwhile, in another part of the forest, not too far from Sam's location, 2 girls were in the middle of their own fight. "Don't you think these monsters are stronger than they should be?" one of them muttered, loosing an arrow straight through the skull of a charging black bear. "Yeah," the other replied, her sword cleaving through a wild boar. "It's strange. They're not supposed to be this tough." The 2 girls were named Lily and Alicia. Both were part of Eclipsia Academy, one of the more prestigious groups involved in Awakener training. Like Sam, they had cleared the novice ruins, defeating the level 3 Goblin Guardian and stepping into the true first layer. They had been planning to clear this forest together, slowly and safely. But then, roar. The same roar Sam had heard reached their ears too. Both girls froze mid-step. Lily was the first to speak. "That sounded like a boss," she said, tightening her grip on her bow. Alicia nodded, her expression hardening. "Let's go. We need to get stronger, and this might be the chance." Without another word, the 2 dashed through the forest toward the source of the sound. But when they arrived near the location of the roar, what they saw was unexpected. Someone was already fighting the boss. Lily's eyes widened. "Wait, someone's already this far. I thought we were ahead of the curve," Alicia muttered, confused. But then she squinted, her focus sharpening. "Hold on, is that Sam?" "Sam?" Lily asked, raising a brow. "Sam Walker?" "Yes." "Look closer." They both leaned forward slightly, hiding behind some trees to avoid getting spotted by the boss. But Alicia was right. It really was him. The same Sam Walker that everyone used to talk about. The boy who supposedly didn't have class. The one everyone dismissed. Lily tilted her head. "That doesn't make sense. Last I saw him, he looked like a zombie. I don't mean physically, but the way he walked, the look in his eyes, it was like he didn't even have a soul." Alicia nodded. "Exactly. Like someone who'd given up. And yet here he was, standing face to face with a level 4 boss monster, and grinning. Not just smirking, grinning wide, as if the thought of dying didn't even faze him. He looked like he was enjoying it." Lily was about to suggest they step in and help, but Alicia stopped her. "Wait, look again," she whispered. Lily turned back to the fight. Sam's stance was calm, focused, even with a massive wolf lunging toward him and other hidden enemies waiting in ambush. He didn't look overwhelmed. In fact, he looked confident, deadly confident. They obviously knew about the Wolf King. It was a level 4 boss that usually appeared only 1 out of 5 expeditions, and it was extremely deadly. They were asked to not try to fight bosses alone, as it was far better to fight in groups. And yet, Sam, all alone, was facing the Wolf King as if it was nothing. "Does this really look like someone that is powerless?" Lily asked with a suspicious gaze. "No." Alicia shook her head. "There's something wrong here." Sam didn't have the luxury of overthinking the presence watching him. As soon as he felt the gaze, the Wolf King lunged forward with a thunderous growl, its massive claws slashing through the air with the intent to rip him apart. "Nice try," Sam smirked, rolling sideways just in time. In one swift motion, he swung his primordial sword, cutting into the beast's side as he passed by. Gruer! The wolf let out a howl of pain, but didn't retreat. Instead, it twisted its bulky body and charged again, its claws glowing faintly with aura. Sam blocked the attack, his blade clashing against the beast's claws with a jarring screech. He jumped back just in time to dodge a follow-up swipe. But the Wolf King wasn't done. A low rumble echoed from its throat before it howled toward the trees. The air shifted, and suddenly 10 more wolves burst out from the forest, answering the boss's tribe call. Each of them looked fierce, fast, and absolutely ready to tear Sam apart. "Oh, level 3, huh?" Sam muttered with a small grin, not intimidated in the slightest. Just as I thought. He narrowed his eyes and focused his aura. The black mist around him thickened for a brief moment before forming 10 compact shadow bullets, each one orbiting him with precise movement. His soul stat had already reached 12 despite being only level 3, more than enough to handle this. The bullets launched. Bang, bang, bang. Each bullet hit its mark. Every wolf was taken out with a single clean shot to the head, their bodies collapsing before they could even snarl. Heads exploded, silence followed, and Sam exhaled smoothly. The Wolf King roared again, enraged that its pack was wiped out so quickly, but Sam was already moving. He ducked beneath another claw swipe and drove his sword upward into its abdomen. Blood sprayed, but the boss refused to die easily. It kicked Sam away and pounced again, but Sam didn't let up. He weaved through its strikes, slashing in return. Blow after blow landed, until the beast staggered. Then, with one final leap, Sam spun midair and brought his sword down like an executioner's blade. The head of the Wolf King separated cleanly from its body and thudded to the forest floor. The giant body toppled a second later, and a soft glow enveloped the remains. "That's mine," he grinned as he grabbed the loot and tossed it inside of the spatial inventory. And then, of course, absorbing, Sam allowed the Primordial sword to absorb the cores of the 10 wolves and the boss. A surge of power flowed through the blade, humming with satisfaction. Just as the light faded, he turned and stared directly toward a thick cluster of trees in the distance. "You can come out now," he said calmly, without raising his voice. 2 figures hesitated for only a moment before stepping out from behind a tree. One of them smiled awkwardly, while the other looked more reserved and cautious. The moment Sam laid eyes on them, his expression changed slightly. "Ah, shit," he muttered under his breath, because he recognized them immediately when he saw their names. Lily Grimoire, level 3, Hell Mode Analysis, the first heroine, daughter of Oliver Grimoire. Lily had striking purple hair that shimmered under the light breaking through the trees. Her elegant, confident stance and high-quality gear gave away her identity as someone important. Sam had no doubt. She was the daughter of the principal of Eclipsia Academy and one of the first major heroines in Forsaken. Her magical archer class was S rank, allowing her to blend bowmanship and magic with deadly results. In the game, she was one of the first to join the player's party, a central figure in the early narrative. But now, there was no player anymore. Sam was the player, which meant the roles were shifting. He didn't even have time to make sense of that before his gaze drifted to the second girl. Alicia Union, level 3, Hell Mode Analysis, another heroine, daughter of the Union Guild leader seen on TV. Alicia had pale white hair and golden eyes, with a sword at her hip that shone with quiet grace. Her presence felt composed, yet deadly. She had awakened the Blooming Blade class, an SS rank that gave her incredible burst potential in battle. She, too, was one of the game's heroines. Now here they both were, standing before him after watching his fight. "So, you two just like spying on people, or is this a hobby?" Sam said with a teasing grin. "And no, not spying," Lily replied quickly, flustered. "We just saw you fighting, and it was incredible." "I agree," Alicia added bluntly. "The way you handled the boss with your sword and bullets, it was impressive." Sam could see it in their eyes. They were shocked. Not just because he had won, but because he had done it. The boy they had heard was classless, the one everyone had mocked. He wasn't supposed to be strong. He wasn't supposed to stand out. But now he had their full attention. "You one of those hide your power guys?" Lily asked curiously, stepping closer. She was only a few inches from his face now, eyes sparkling with interest. "Not really," Sam replied, scratching his neck. "I just woke up like this." It wasn't a lie. "Not exactly. I'm heading to the lair boss now," he added, turning away. "Probably going to be level 5, considering how jacked up this lair is." "You sure?" Alicia asked, a bit more concerned. "I heard only the hardest versions of this place have a level 5 boss." "If it is," Sam replied, a smirk playing on his lips. Then I'll kill it. Simple as that. Lily and Alicia looked at one another, stunned by his confidence. Neither could say anything, so Sam just walked off. Wait here or follow, up to you, he called behind him. I've got work to do. Without looking back, he moved deeper into the forest. But behind him, the girls hesitated and then snapped out of it. Hey, wait, Lily said, running after him. You're seriously going alone again? An hour passed. Despite what they said, Sam noticed Lily and Alicia trailing behind him the entire time. Finally, he turned around and sighed. You two really don't have anything better to do? We do, Lily said cheerfully, but we're curious about you. Alicia nodded. Your method of leveling up, it's different. Most people gained levels by simply killing monsters. But Sam? He wasn't just killing. He was absorbing, feeding the monster's cores to his sword, drawing strength directly from them. It was strange, unnatural, but clearly effective. There was something magnetic about him now. Both girls felt it, a pull neither could explain. And truthfully, they weren't wrong to follow him. The forest was dangerous. No one else from their batch had made it this far. While many stayed behind in the novice ruins to grind safely, Sam, Lily, and Alicia had pushed forward, facing high-level monsters and brutal encounters. Yet even then, Lily and Alicia had still relied on each other to survive. Sam had done alone. As more time passed, the trees began to thin, and the atmosphere changed. A subtle pressure hung in the air. We're close, Lily said, slowing her steps, bow already drawn. Close to what? Sam asked, glancing at her. Alicia answered with a serious tone. The gate to the second layer. The final part of the tutorial. Both girls looked more tense now. Even Sam felt the shift. He had never defeated the boss of the first layer in his past life as a player. It had always been too strong, and he had never had the right timing or tools. But now there were no retries, no resets, no second chances. This was reality, and whatever waited beyond the forest, he had to beat it. Sam inhaled slowly. Then he stepped forward, ready for whatever came next. Sam had already suspected it, but seeing it firsthand made it undeniable. Even together, Lily and Alicia took noticeable effort to bring down just one level 4 monster. They weren't weak, far from it. They were among the best S-rank and SS-rank classes, the daughters of important people in the world, destined heroines. But despite that, it still took time, focus, precision, and teamwork. Meanwhile, Sam could cleave through monsters like they were paper. He wasn't boasting. It was just a fact. Slash. Another green snake was split in two with a single horizontal cut, its body thudding to the ground before it could even hiss. Sam followed up with 2 perfectly aimed shots from his shadow bullets, the dart projectiles flying through the air and slamming straight into the sides of a level 4 savage bear, the very same one Lily and Alicia were still fighting. The bullets struck hard and fast, enough to knock the beast off balance. The girls finished it off from there. Unlike Sam, their leveling system was more traditional. They gained experience by killing monsters or helping with their defeat. Every assist counted. As for Sam, when he absorbed a monster's core with his Primordial sword, he didn't just get partial experience, he got everything. Every bit of strength, energy, and growth stored in that core became his. Of course, there was a trade-off. His experience requirements were massive. Absurdly so. The stronger your class, the more experience you need to level, Alicia noted aloud as the 3 of them moved through the dense underbrush of the forest. Her voice was calm, but there was a tone of curiosity in it. Lily and I are still level 3 for that reason. But if Sam still hasn't leveled up yet, that means his class must be something ridiculous, Lily finished for her, her violet eyes practically shining with curiosity. Sam didn't answer. He just kept walking, eyes sharp or alert. The deeper they went into the forest, the heavier the air seemed to get. It wasn't a real weight, but rather a tension pressing on Sam's chest, an instinctive pull that told him they were getting close. The boss was near, and if he was right, this would be the biggest challenge yet. He wasn't sure what would happen if he failed. In the game, dying just meant a reset. But now, there was no respawn screen waiting for him. There were no second chances here. Still, Sam continued absorbing everything in sight. Every monster that showed up, he cut down and fed into his sword. Somewhere along the way, they encountered a second boss, the Bear King, another level 4 threat. This one was more dangerous than anything they'd faced so far. Lily's arrows blinded it at just the right moment. Alicia drew its attention with a fake-out charge, and Sam cut it clean down the middle while its guard was lowered. He could have done it alone, but it would have taken longer, maybe even been risky. It made him realize something he hadn't wanted to admit. Teamwork mattered, a lot more than he had thought. Still, the thought itched in the back of his head. My intermediate sword technique is clearly ahead. I evolved it earlier, and it's stronger than anything they've shown so far. I wonder how far I can push it if I max it out completely. Some Awakeners spent weeks in one layer, exploring its corners or farming monsters to power up. But this first layer, this tutorial zone, wasn't as big. There weren't that many hiding places. And Sam didn't have the luxury of time. Waiting another full day just to evolve one skill? He didn't think that was necessary. Lily and Alicia finally hit level 4 after slaying the Bear King, but Sam remained at level 3. His EXP bar was likely crawling, even with the boss core he had just absorbed. Before they could even speak another word, something shifted. Fwish! A new system prompt appeared before Sam's eyes. You sense an overwhelming presence nearby. His grip tightened on his sword. They were close. Very close. The trees thinned out, and then the forest ended altogether. The group stepped out onto a wide clearing, the light above much stronger now that they were free of the canopy. "We're out," Lily whispered, drawing her bow, her fingers tensing around the string. "This is it." Alicia said nothing, but stepped beside Sam, sword in hand, her stance sharp and ready. Sam's crimson eyes were locked ahead. He didn't flinch, didn't hesitate. And then they saw it. A massive wall stood before them, so tall it seemed to reach the clouds above. A structure carved into the earth itself, ancient and unmoving. "This is the barrier between layers," Alicia said, voice quiet but firm. "The second layer is behind that wall. But if we want through, we'll have to earn it." They all knew what came next. In the center of the wall was a large gate, etched in runes that glowed faintly, and before it stood a motionless figure, seated as if waiting. And the moment the 3 Awakeners stepped forward, it rose. Massive, intimidating, and definitely not normal. Lily stepped back. What? Alicia's eyes narrowed, and she clenched her sword tighter. This isn't supposed to happen. Sam, however, just stared with focus. In the game, the boss of the first layer was usually level 3, sometimes level 4 on rare spawns. It was a tough fight for most players, requiring coordination and tactics. But now, the enemy before them wasn't level 3. It wasn't even level 4. Guardian Swordmaster boss. Level 5. Description: the guardian of the gate leading to the second layer. Defeat is required to progress. The Guardian Swordmaster stood over 3 meters tall. Armor covered its entire frame, gleaming black metal accented with deep red etchings. Its helmet had a cage-like visor, and through it burned 2 glowing crimson eyes, locked directly onto Sam. Step! Boom! The very ground cracked beneath its feet as it walked forward. It gripped a massive longsword, nearly twice the size of Sam himself, and carried it like it weighed nothing. But what caught Sam's attention most was the orb embedded in the middle of its chest plate, a faintly glowing yellow sphere. He checked his system again. Helm mode analysis. Its movements are precise, and its strikes leave no margin for error. Still, just overwhelm it like the others. Sam narrowed his eyes. So that orb's not a weakness, huh? He thought as he raised his hand and summoned his shadow bullets. He fired all of them toward the orb anyway, just to be sure. Each one hit dead center, and each one bounced off harmlessly. Nothing, not even a scratch. Thought so. If the system wasn't highlighting a weakness, it meant this fight wasn't about finding tricks or loopholes. This was going to be a duel of pure strength. Sword versus sword. Sam stepped forward and gripped his blade tighter, the familiar weight of the primordial sword grounding him. "We might be screwed," he said calmly, glancing at Lily and Alicia. But we don't really have a choice, do we? Lily forced a smile and readied her bow again. Guess not. Alicia said nothing but took her place beside Sam, her stance low and firm. Sam took one last breath. His eyes darkened, and the shadows around his feet began to rise. A swirling, heavy aura emerged from his body, thick and suffocating, clashing violently against the crimson presence that the Guardian Swordmaster emitted. Two auras, colliding in the clearing. This was it, the boss that had always held him back in the game. But now, there were no second tries. No saves. No loading screens. If he was going to win, he had to do it now. And he had to do it in one shot. The Guardian Swordmaster took another heavy step forward, the weight of its armored body making the ground tremble slightly beneath it. But after that step, it suddenly stopped. For a brief moment, it just stood there, motionless before slowly lifting its head. Its crimson eyes gleamed through the cage-like slit in its helmet, locking onto the three awakeners standing across from it. And then, an eerie red light pulsed through its eyes. I curse. The effect was immediate. A wave of pressure slammed into Sam, Lily, and Alicia. It wasn't physical, but it hit like a truck. Their minds were targeted. Their instincts screamed. Their thoughts wavered. Act! What the hell? Sam turned, quickly realizing what had happened. Lily and Alicia stood behind him, their eyes wide in fear, hands trembling as their weapons shook in their grips. The aura of fear had taken hold of them. They couldn't move properly. But him? Nothing. A soft, calm message floated before his vision. A primordial cannot feel fear. Keep going. Oh, so that was it. The eye curse was designed to paralyze the opponent with overwhelming fear, disrupting their movement, ruining their aim. But to someone like Sam, someone marked as primordial, it didn't even register. A smirk tugged at the corner of his lips. All right, he muttered under his breath. Let's do this. Without waiting, Sam dashed forward. His form blurred as he closed the distance between himself and the towering Guardian in an instant. The average Awakener wouldn't dare approach something like this head-on, especially a boss several levels above them. But Sam had no time for hesitation. Lily and Alicia were still stunned, the curse clinging to them. If he didn't act fast, they'd be easy targets. That wasn't an option. He needed them alive. Having allies, witnesses to what he could do, was important. Building trust, influence, reputation, it all mattered. Fwish! Boom! The Guardian Swordmaster moved with surprising speed, swinging its enormous sword toward him just as he reached it. But Sam didn't slow down. He swung his primordial sword straight into the attack. Clang! A shockwave burst out from the impact, shaking the open field around them. The air rippled from the force, and even the trees at the edge of the forest swayed. The next moment, their blades clashed again. Then again, over and over. Each strike was heavier than the last. Each impact louder. Sparks flew with every swing. Sam's arms vibrated from the force of the blows. His grip on the sword tested every time. But he didn't flinch. He didn't retreat. He kept going. His mind focused, teeth clenched. The primordial sword won't break, he reminded himself. But just matching it isn't enough. I need to find an opening. I need to win. And it was clear now. The Guardian Swordmaster's technique, while powerful, was just about on par with Sam's intermediate sword technique. Had Sam evolved it one more time, he would have had the clear advantage. But for now, they were equals, which meant he only needed one opportunity. One mistake. One perfect strike. The Guardian raised its blade for another overhead swing, and in that moment, Sam acted. He rolled to the side, narrowly dodging the strike, then slashed at the Guardian's side in a single smooth motion. Slash! The sound of his sword cutting through metal echoed in his ears. Even though the boss wore thick armor, Sam's attack left a noticeable gash across its side. It wasn't much, but it was proof that he could damage it. It could bleed. The Guardian let out a furious roar that vibrated through its helmet. Sam grinned wider. Slash! 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 He pressed forward, landing a few more hits. But the moment he started to build momentum, the Guardian changed tactics. Its aura surged. It raised one leg, then slammed a kick straight into Sam's chest. Bam! Sam was sent flying, But at the last moment, a faint slime-like substance appeared around him. Slime barrier activated. The protective layer absorbed most of the damage, letting him land with only a grunt of pain. He pushed himself up quickly, ready to re-engage, but then he saw something that made his eyes narrow. The Guardian stood tall, its blade held sideways in both hands. It wasn't just standing there. It was charging something. Sam's body tensed, and a chill ran down his spine. He remembered this moment. He had seen it before. This move, that stance. He had died to it. Multiple times. Sword Crescent. That was the name of the boss's ultimate technique, its deadliest attack. A ranged wave of concentrated energy released in a wide arc. It wasn't something that could be blocked easily, and dodging had failed him every time before. Fwish! Fwish! Energy built up around the blade. Sam's heart pounded. He looked back. Lily and Alicia were still standing behind him, barely recovering from the fear status. If that attack hit them, they'd die. And if he let it through, so would he. There was only one thing he could do now. He took a deep breath, tightened his grip, and then he ran forward, straight toward the attack. The Guardian released its energy. A massive white crescent of power sliced through the air toward him. Sam focused his aura into his sword, his dark energy wrapping tightly around the blade. He braced his feet and swung. Boom! The sound was deafening. The clash of white and black energies created a massive explosion of force, knocking back dust and wind across the field. Sam grunted, feet skidding across the ground as he pushed back against the wave. His arms shook. His legs burned. He was losing ground. Come on, he growled in his mind. And just then, a panel appeared. Hell mode analysis. If a single bullet doesn't work, then how about combining them? His eyes widened. That's it. He raised his hand, calling forth his shadow bullets. One by one, they formed around him, 10 in total, swirling with his dark energy. Then he focused and merged them. The bullets combined into a single, denser mass of pure shadow, a bullet far more potent than any he had fired before. Geo, he shouted, hurling the shadow bullet straight at the Guardian. It flew past the still clashing energies and struck the yellow orb embedded in the Guardian's chest. Crack, boom. This time, the orb didn't absorb the hit. It shattered. The Guardian staggered, its entire body trembling. Its aura flickered, and in that moment, the crescent weakened, losing momentum. Sam's eyes sharpened. With renewed strength, he pushed back and broke through the energy slash entirely. He charged forward, closing the distance in a blur. The Guardian, stunned, couldn't react in time. Slash! With one clean swing, Sam sliced through the Guardian's neck. Its head flew from its body, and a massive armored figure fell to its knees, then crumbled. The wind blew gently across the battlefield. Sam landed on his feet and exhaled. That was insane, he whispered. He wasted no time. He raised his sword once again, and the familiar dark tendrils emerged from blade. They wrapped around the boss's remains, absorbing its core into his body. Ding! Congratulations to Sam Walker for leveling up to level 4 of the novice rank. And then a second message. Ding! Your shadow bullets, common. Skill has evolved into Shadow Barrage, uncommon. Even without using Primordial evolution, the skill had naturally evolved through pressure and creativity. Sam's grin widened. From behind, Lily's voice broke the silence. Incredible, he's amazing. Alicia nodded beside her, eyes still wide. We couldn't even move, and he just destroyed it. And then, just as they processed everything, ding! The system announcement echoed across the first layer, heard by every single Awakener still exploring its lands. It was rare for announcements like this to appear. Only a handful of triggers could cause one, and one of them was the defeat of the layer boss. The moment it happened, the system made it known to all other Awakeners that the path forward had been cleared. Anyone still grinding could now continue doing so freely, but they'd also have the option to leave the layer if they wished. In essence, it was an open invitation. Stay and farm or move on. Sam's name had been included in the announcement too. Good, Sam thought to himself with a grin. That should boost my reputation quite a bit. That kind of attention came with perks, and Sam intended to use all of them. Of course, he didn't plan to reveal his class anytime soon. Keeping it a secret was the smartest move. The power of his class was far too rare, too dangerous. If word got out, he'd have far more than attention to deal with. He'd have suspicion, envy, maybe even enemies. That's why he had to walk a fine line. Strong enough to gain influence, but not so strong that others would start asking questions he didn't want to answer. And now that he had officially cleared the tutorial layer, Sam was entering uncharted territory. Even in hell mode, the first layer was manageable. But beyond this point, he had no idea what awaited him. Not really. Still, there was no turning back now. With slow, careful steps, Sam walked toward the spot where the Guardian Swordmaster had been absorbed. In its place, several item drops glittered faintly. Sam crouched and picked them up one by one, inspecting each carefully. Nice, he thought, eyes scanning the item info panels as they popped up before him. Swordmaster's armor. Rank uncommon. Hell mode analysis. Don't wear it. It'll just slow you down. Swordmaster's sword. Rank uncommon. Hell mode analysis. Doesn't even compare to the Primordial sword. Useless. Fearsome ring. Rank rare. Hell mode analysis. Grants immunity to fear status. No use to you. Sam's brow raised slightly at the last item. The fearsome ring wasn't much use to him. His primordial status made him immune to fear altogether. But others? They'd probably pay a lot for this. He thought back to Lily and Alicia, remembering how badly they had been affected by the boss's I curse. If he hadn't intervened, they would have been as good as dead. I might be poor now, but not for long, Sam grinned as he tossed all the loot into his spatial inventory, as well as his primordial sword. The items disappeared instantly, absorbed into the endless space of his inventory. He looked back and noticed Lily and Alicia walking toward him, their expressions still filled with awe. Lily was the first to speak, her voice practically bursting with excitement. You actually did it. Alone too, Alicia followed with a more reserved, sincere tone. And thank you. If you hadn't stepped in when you did, we wouldn't have survived the Sword Crescent. Both of them remembered the feeling clearly. The moment the boss charged that attack, they knew they wouldn't live through it. But Sam had done the unthinkable. Instead of dodging, like anyone else would have, he had stepped into the attack. That wasn't just brave. That was reckless. Unless he knew he could win. And somehow, they both got the feeling that he did. That he had planned it all. That nothing about that battle had caught him off guard. Whether that was true or not didn't really matter. What mattered was that he saved their lives. I saw you toss the loot into that weird hole, Lily said suddenly, her curiosity coming back in full force. Is that some kind of inventory? Sam nodded and pulled up the spatial inventory window, letting them see as he reached inside and pulled out a familiar-looking black backpack, the same one he had grabbed when he first woke up in that old apartment room. Yeah, he said simply. Pretty much an endless inventory. I can store anything in here. The girls looked impressed, but Sam didn't linger on it. His gaze shifted toward the far wall, where the massive gate leading to the next layer stood silent and closed. Or at least, it had been, because as the announcement rang out across the layer, the ancient runes engraved into the gate began to pulse with light. Slowly, the gate groaned open, revealing not another landscape, but a swirling void of pure darkness. So that's the entrance to the second layer? Huh, Sam murmured. Lily stepped forward, folding her arms. It's going to be a lot tougher than this one. Each layer has a mechanic, and this one was just the beginning. A tutorial. The next one, that's where it really starts. Sam nodded. He had heard that too. Each layer had its number, but also a nickname, a name that captured the experience it offered. The first layer was the tutorial layer. But the second layer? It's called the ruined layer. Alicia said, her tone much more cautious now. But we'll probably return to the real world before diving into it. That was true. They would automatically be pulled out once they passed through the gate, sending them to reality. And Sam? He didn't mind. He needed the downtime. He still had the primordial evolution skill on cooldown, and he wanted to make sure all of his skills were properly leveled before diving deeper. With one last glance behind him, Sam walked toward the gate. He could have stayed behind to farm one last level, reach level 5, and grab an extra skill. But something told him it wasn't worth it. There were more important things waiting for him now. Lily and Alicia stepped beside him. Together, the three of them passed through the darkness beyond the gate. Ding! You have conquered the first layer, and will now be transported back to reality. Your connection to the Forsaken realm is now fully established. You will be able to enter the second layer soon. You may also return to the first layer at any time by thinking about it in the first outer ring. A temporary rift will open, allowing you re-entry. Sam nodded, and almost instantly, a strange sensation took hold of him. His body was pulled forward, as if he was being dragged by invisible chains through a void of space and time. The feeling lasted only a few seconds. Fwish! Ding! In a flash, he reappeared, his feet landing on the crumbled stone floor of the ruins. The same place where he had first entered the gate. Lily and Alicia landed beside him. They were alone. The others were still inside the lair, still grinding or wandering. And now, they were the first to leave. Wait, Sam muttered, a sudden realization creeping in. How do we get back if there's no one? But before he could finish, the air in front of them trembled. A massive ripple spread out, and then, boom, a portal opened. From it stepped a man, his hair white as snow and his golden eyes glowing with power. A second boom followed. A purple beam of light surged downward, and from within it came another figure, silent but smiling widely. Sam's gaze locked onto both of them. He recognized them immediately. Oh, he whispered under his breath. The first man stepped forward, scanning the group with a grin. Looks like we've got our first batch, he said casually. Good. The second didn't say anything, but the smile on his face was hard to miss. Sam tensed slightly, his instincts on edge, but he didn't move. He didn't flinch, and he didn't look away. Standing before him were two of the most powerful awakeners in the North region, Oliver Grimoire and David Union. All of you, the man on stage said, his purple hair catching the light. This will be the most important day of your lives. His voice was calm, but powerful enough to silence the crowd. Every student in the plaza turned their full attention to him. Sam, standing somewhere in the middle, noticed how mixed the expressions around him were. Some were filled with anticipation, others gripped by nervousness, and a few were even shaking slightly. Today, the man continued, you will finally be able to enter the Forsaken realm and challenge it. A heavy silence followed his words, as if everyone knew the weight behind them. As many of you already know, only a small number of people ever get the chance to enter the realm. That's because you need to awaken a class, something that only 1 in 50 people are capable of. He paused, letting that fact settle into the hearts of the students. In addition to that, the danger inside is much greater than you think. Many of those who enter never even make it past the first layer. Sam smirked faintly to himself, hands tucked in his pockets. Tell me about it, he thought, remembering all the times he failed during his countless attempts in the game. I practically lived in that first layer. Still, everything felt familiar. This moment, this speech, even the nervous energy that filled the plaza, it was all just like in the game. The man on stage, the principal of Eclipse Academy, Oliver, was simply doing his job, explaining the history and importance of the Forsaken realm, just like he did in the game's prologue. The Forsaken realm appeared suddenly, without warning. The principal continued. Humanity struggled to deal with the threats it unleashed until people like you, awakeners, emerged. Strong individuals who could face the dangers within. You are humanity's best hope. Another pause, and then, many of you may fall. But those who survive, those who prove themselves, may be noticed by powerful guilds. You may be recruited, trained, and given the resources to become legends. He let the words sink in before finally finishing. This is your turning point, your chance to rise. Now, we will prepare to send you all to the first rift. From there, you'll be on your own. Prove your worth, and maybe, just maybe, you'll become the one who conquers the realm. A moment later, the principal raised a hand and called someone over. Just outside the academy gates, dozens of large black buses were already parked, waiting for the students. You can't access the Forsaken realm on your own, at least not yet. This first entry is special. But once you've entered once, you'll gain the ability to return whenever you wish, and more importantly, your true powers will awaken. The crowd began to move. Most students quickly made their way toward the buses, carrying only small bags and nervous expressions. Sam followed, without a word, blending in with the rest as an extra. Not that it mattered. He was here now, and he was ready to test out what the Primordial class could really do. Sam climbed into one of the buses and sat by the window, resting his head against the cool glass as the vehicle hummed to life. He closed his eyes. He had no allies, no special connections, no fanfare, just a sword, a strange class, and memories of a game he barely even started. Even the heroines and side characters from the game were unknown to him. He'd spent so much time trying to survive the first layer that he never actually progressed into the deeper parts of the story. He remembered their names, but not their personalities or roles. In a way, it felt like going in blind. He would be completely on his own. "Hey, bud, mind if we sit here?" A voice broke his thoughts, and Sam opened his eyes slowly. In front of him stood a group of students, 4 of them to be precise. The one speaking had a wide, smug grin. Sam's gaze shifted to the empty seats nearby, then back to the guy. "There are plenty of other spots," he replied dryly. "Take one of them." The group's friendly smiles quickly turned into sneers. "You got some nerve," the red-haired leader of the group said, stepping closer. "Talking back like that when you don't even have a class? You really think you'll survive?" Sam blinked. "They actually think I don't have a class. But if so, what am I even doing in this academy? Maybe whoever put me into this body before made it so that I didn't awaken anything which would explain the hostility." Either way, Sam didn't flinch. "I don't have time for you," he said quietly, turning his eyes back to the window. "If you're so confident in your powers, then prove it in the realm." The words clearly struck a nerve, and the group looked like they were about to attack. But thankfully, the bus was too cramped for anything serious. After a few seconds of angry muttering, they walked away, taking seats nearby. Sam wasn't worried. People like them barked the loudest, but rarely bit. His mind was already somewhere else, focused on what awaited him inside the realm. The ride was long. Nearly 5 hours passed before they finally arrived. No fast travel button in real life. Sam thought to himself. They had officially left the inner ring of the continent and entered the first, outer ring, a much wilder, less developed region. The sky overhead was clear, and open fields stretched for miles. But in the distance, ruins loomed like forgotten memories. Then came the announcement. "We have arrived. The first rift is just ahead." Sam straightened up, his eyes narrowing as he looked outside. Oliver nodded slowly. "As I thought, a new record." He looked toward the place Sam had stood just moments earlier, a thoughtful expression in his eyes. "We'll see where the future leads," he said softly. Meanwhile, Sam's body reassembled in the middle of a large, crowded plaza bathed in golden light. Towering buildings surrounded him, the unmistakable hum of civilization buzzing through the air. He looked around, letting out a small sigh of relief. "I'm back," he muttered. "Good. Now I just need to find the Awakener Association." He didn't waste any time. Ashbourne City was massive, but the Awakener District was easy enough to find. With its countless shops, equipment vendors, potion stalls, and blacksmiths, it was buzzing with activity. But one building stood out clearly above all the rest, colossal, sleek, and glowing with neon blue lights. At the top of the structure, bold, glowing letters spelled out, "Awakener Association." Just below that, a strange motto flashed in a shifting script. "May the will of the gods allow us to conquer this forsaken realm." Sam stared up at the sign for a long moment, letting its weight settle in. Then, without hesitation, he stepped forward. He had conquered the tutorial layer. He had earned his class, gained strength, and proven he could hold his own, even against odds that should have killed him. Now, his real journey was about to begin. As Sam stepped into the Awakener Association, the first thing that struck him was the sheer number of people. Hundreds of Awakeners filled the wide, marble-floored building. Some were gathered in groups, exchanging information about monsters, layers, or loot. Others were lined up at counters, speaking with staff members dressed in black and silver uniforms. Laughter echoed from the lounge area, while a few tense faces stood silently by holographic bulletin boards, scanning mission requests. The entire place had a clean, almost futuristic aesthetic. It was vast, high-ceilinged, and filled with glass walls that gave it a sense of openness. Giant screens floated mid-air, displaying live footage from different dungeon zones, upcoming events, and guild recruitment ads. It was busy, organized chaos. "Looks like I really am one of the youngest here," Sam noted as he glanced around. Most of the Awakeners around him looked to be in their 20s or 30s, hardened and experienced. Some wore enchanted armor or draped cloaks that shimmered faintly. Others had weapons strapped to their backs or glowing rings on their fingers. Compared to them, Sam felt plain. He wore simple clothing, had no visible gear, and no one gave him a second look. "Then again, I did clear the first layer way faster than normal," he reminded himself. "No surprise I'm the first rookie to get here." The path he had taken into the Forsaken Realm was through a rift in the ruins that Eclipsia Academy had led their students to. But that wasn't the only rift in existence. Across the entire outer ring, there were several portals that led to separate instances of the first layer. It made sense. Cramming every new Awakener into a single space would have been a disaster. The Forsaken Realm worked like a dimensional mirror, capable of generating infinite instances of itself, identical in layout, but different in boss difficulty and monster spawns. That explained why Sam's boss had been a level 5 Guardian Swordmaster, while others might have only faced level 3 enemies. Nobody knew how many rifts existed or how they were placed, but one thing was for certain. Academies chose a rift and entered it at the same time. And yet, here Sam was already out, already done. "I should register first, then sell off what I have so I can get some actual money." He resisted the urge to use Hell Mode analysis on the other Awakeners. While he was curious about their ranks and levels, he didn't want to trigger anyone's aggression. From what he'd seen, high-ranking Awakeners could detect when someone tried to peek into their status. That was a fight he didn't want to start inside a public institution, especially when his skills weren't even fully evolved yet. Eventually, he reached the front desk. A young woman with a sleek uniform and tied-back hair greeted him with a practiced smile. "Hello, sir," she said cheerfully. "Welcome to the Awakener Association. What can I help you with today?" "I'm here to register as an Awakener," Sam replied calmly. The receptionist's eyes lit up in surprise. "Oh, congratulations on clearing the first layer, then," she said as she gave him a small bow. "You're actually the first Awakener to come in and register today." Sam gave a small nod. It was confirmation. Not only had he cleared the layer pretty much alone, but he'd also done it faster than anyone else so far. The receptionist quickly moved into action, pulling up a holographic interface on her desk. She began asking him for the basic information: name, age, city of residence. Sam gave what he could, using Gravemont City as his home address, since that's where he'd woken up. It was a vague answer, but it seemed good enough. Fortunately, she didn't ask about his class. If she had, he would have refused. Revealing his class was something he wanted to avoid. After a few more clicks, she handed him a small rectangular device. "Please press your finger on this for identification." Sam complied, placing his finger on the scanner. A small prick of heat ran through his skin as the device recorded his print. Then, he was given a few digital forms to sign. After scribbling his name across each one, the system beeped. A moment later, the receptionist held out a slim, glossy black card. "Congratulations on your awakening, Mr. Sam Walker." He took the card, inspecting it briefly. It had his picture and a small amount of information about him. "This card will give you access to the association's features. You can also use it to store currency and make payments," she explained with a smile. Sam slipped it into his pocket instead of placing it into his spatial inventory. Better to avoid attracting attention. Pulling out items from thin air in front of everyone was not the best idea. Now that I'm registered, I can finally start moving toward my goals. The receptionist tilted her head slightly. "Do you have any other questions?" "Yeah," Sam said without hesitation. Where can I sell my items? I'm broke. He didn't have to add that last part, but he did anyway. Might as well be honest. To his surprise, the receptionist grinned even wider. Of course. One moment. A few minutes later, a staff member arrived and gestured for Sam to follow him down a side hallway. They reached a quiet lounge where a middle-aged man in glasses sat on a couch, flipping through a tablet. The man looked up. New awakener, huh? Yep. Sam sat down across from him without hesitation. There was no need for long conversations. Sam simply activated his spatial inventory and began unloading everything he wanted to sell. The man seemed surprised at the ability Sam was displaying, but he didn't ask any questions. Goblin weapons, minor loot from random forest creatures, and finally, the good stuff. The man's eyes sharpened as Sam placed the two uncommon grade items from the Guardian Sword Master, followed by the fearsome ring. For a moment, the appraiser said nothing. Then he leaned back slightly, obviously taken aback. You took down a Guardian Sword Master alone? He asked casually, though there was a note of disbelief in his voice. Sam didn't answer. He didn't need to. The items spoke for themselves. The appraiser began evaluating everything. It took a few minutes, with holographic projections appearing above each item as values were assessed. Eventually, the man nodded and confirmed the total. Based on the rarity, condition, and demand, we can offer you $10,280. Sam gave a nod of approval. It wasn't a fortune, but it was enough to survive for a while. Deal, Sam said, standing up. Pleasure doing business, the man replied, already filing the transfer through Sam's Awakener card. As Sam walked out of the room, he felt a little lighter. He was now officially recognized as an Awakener. He had money in his pocket, and his next move was already forming in his mind. All right, registration's done. Got my funds. Now I just need one last thing. He stepped outside the association building and looked up at the clear sky above. Okay, he muttered to himself. Now how do I create a guild? Creating a guild wasn't something you could just do on a whim. Sure, everyone technically had the right to start their own guild. But rights didn't mean much when the system itself pushed every new Awakener into joining one instead. There was a reason why guilds were everywhere. They provided security, support, money, connections, equipment, training grounds, everything a young Awakener could need. Most people were either too weak, too lazy, or too scared to even think about creating their own. And to be fair, it made sense. If you were talented or powerful, guilds would chase you. You'd get showered in benefits without needing to worry about logistics or paperwork. Just train, grow stronger, and enjoy the perks. But Sam wasn't like most people. He didn't want to rely on others. He didn't want to serve under anyone else. And more importantly, he didn't want to be just a member. The difference between being in a guild and running one was night and day. Sam hadn't spoiled himself with too much information, but there were some key details he had purposely committed to memory. One of them was that the protagonist at some point formed a guild. A powerful one. One that allowed him to take part in world-changing events, high-level raids, and association-backed competitions. Guilds recognized by the Awakener Association had access to all kinds of special perks, not just financially, but in influence and opportunities. That was what Sam wanted. Not just the benefits, but the potential to shape the world around him. Of course, the road wasn't easy. A lot of people created guilds. Most of them failed. It wasn't just about forming a group and putting a name on a paper. It took strength, consistency, and more than anything, leadership. Still, Sam wasn't deterred. Even if he had to be a one-man guild, he'd make it work. He just had to wait for the right moment. I'll wait until all my skills are evolved, Sam thought. That's the safest way forward. For now, he needed time. Time to grow. Time to gather information. Time to evolve. Because even if the world turned against him, even if every single guild, Awakener, and monster tried to tear him down, he'd still rise. He wasn't just some background extra anymore. He was a Primordial. Hours passed, and Sam eventually found himself a room at a cheap but clean hotel near the Awakener Association. He didn't need anything luxurious, just a bed. He kept his head low, but he listened. As more and more people came out of the first layer, conversations in the streets grew louder. Damn, the newbies are taking their sweet time. You're a newbie too, man. You're literally apprentice rank. Shut up. I'm trying my best. It was almost funny. People judged each other based on ranks and levels, but most of them didn't understand how meaningless those numbers could be when compared to real skill. Sam didn't even bother chiming in. He just smiled faintly and returned to his room. He knew what he had to do. I'll look into everything once I'm ready, he muttered, his crimson eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. Until then, I evolve. And that's exactly what he did. 2 weeks passed. He barely left the hotel except to grab food or the occasional item. He bought a cheap smartphone just to browse forums and dig up as much information as he could. Every day, he would simply use Primordial Evolution as soon as its cooldown was reset. That is pretty much all he had to do. And now, finally, he was ready. All my skills are Forsaken rank, he said with a calm grin, his eyes fixed on the glowing panels in front of him. He hadn't tested them out yet, but he could feel the power burning inside his body. The energy was overwhelming. First was his sword technique. Intermediate sword technique, uncommon. Advanced sword technique, rare. Elite sword technique, epic. Master sword technique, legendary. Primordial sword technique, Forsaken. Then his long-range skill. Shadow Barrage, uncommon. Phantom Burst, rare. Void Salvo, epic. Eclipse Barrage, legendary. Abyssal Obliteration, Forsaken. And finally, his defense. Slime Barrier, common. Elastic Guard, uncommon. Reactive Shield, rare. Living Bastion, epic. Shield of Transcendence, legendary. Eternal Barrier, Forsaken. Primordial Evolution didn't care about ranks or requirements. It simply pushed skills beyond their limits, as long as Sam ordered it to. And now, he had 3 Forsaken rank skills, something almost unheard of. Most Awakeners would never even see one in their entire life. But Sam had them, only 2 weeks after awakening. His smile widened as he opened his status window. Name, Sam Walker. Class, Primordial. Rank, Novice. Level, 3-4. Strength, 7-8. Agility, 6-7. Constitution, 7-8. Soul, 12-14. Affinities, Shadow. Class skills, Spatial Inventory, Primordial Evolution, Hell Mode Analysis. Skills, Primordial Sword Technique, Forsaken. Abyssal Obliteration, Forsaken. Eternal Barrier, Forsaken. Of course, his stats were still that of a low-level novice. That part hadn't changed much. But power wasn't only about numbers. His technique, his timing, and his arsenal had all improved beyond anything a normal level 4 could achieve. And he could feel it whenever he held the primordial sword. The aura it gave off was so intense, he couldn't even keep it in his hand for more than a few seconds without fearing the people outside could feel its aura. He didn't doubt it. If he used these new powers, he could probably fight monsters up to level 10 without even breaking a sweat. And now that his evolution work was done, it was time. All right, Sam exhaled deeply, a low grin forming. Now I can keep going. He stood in the center of the hotel room, the faint hum of power radiating from his skin. He had already accepted it. There was no protagonist anymore. Even he, an extra, was simply someone else in this world now. He would grow stronger, stronger than anyone else. And if the world was going to crumble without the original protagonist, then Sam would become something far greater. He would become the one who stood at the top. But for now, he had one final requirement to meet. Creating a guild requires you to be apprentice rank. He already knew this from his research. The Awakener Association didn't allow novices to register a guild. It was a hard rule. Too many failed attempts from weaklings who bit off more than they could chew. The system made sure that only those with at least some strength could start something of their own. Sam didn't argue with that logic. It made sense, and it didn't matter. He was ready. Looks like there's no other choice, he said, his hand already reaching for the hilt of his sword. Time to clear a rift, not just to get stronger, but to finally test his abilities too. Beside the layers of the Forsaken Realm, there was another type of place that Awakeners could explore to grow stronger. Rifts. Unlike the layers, which often had strict progression limits, rifts varied much more in terms of challenge and were found scattered all across the world, mostly within the outer rings. These rifts serve as condensed zones of chaos, spawning monsters, corrupted mana, and rare resources. Most importantly, they gave Awakeners the experience needed to level up. The first layer of the Forsaken Realm was ideal for beginners. The monsters inside usually range from level 1 to level 5. It was the perfect place for new Awakeners to get used to their powers, but it also meant that those who needed more experience, like Sam, had to either grind for weeks or seek alternatives. Going straight into the second layer was an option, but it came with its own share of dangers. The monsters there started at level 10 minimum, and that wasn't something most people were willing to handle right away. It wasn't just the levels that made them dangerous either. Their intelligence, skills, and strength jumped drastically. Sam felt confident that he could handle it, but trying out his new abilities in a controlled setting first just made more sense. No need to risk his life when there was a smarter path. That smarter path was through a rift. These rifts appeared naturally and were assigned a rank depending on the level of Awakeners they were suited for. The further out into the outer rings you went, the harder they became. But some of them, especially those currently classified under the novice rank, were ideal for people like Sam. After finishing his preparations, Sam left the hotel room he'd stayed holed up in for the past 2 weeks. He made his way back to the Awakener Association, now ready to act. The familiar clean scent of the marble-floored lobby greeted him. Screens floated in the air, showing news, guild rankings, and recent rift clear times. A few novice Awakeners were gathered around a display screen, talking about the latest realm stats. Sam stepped toward the main reception desk. The same woman from before, with her polite smile and professional tone, welcomed him. "Hello again, sir," she greeted. "Hi," Sam replied. "I wanted to ask about novice rifts. If any are available, I want the hardest one." She blinked at him, surprised by the boldness in his voice. "Are you sure, sir?" she asked cautiously. "There's a rift scheduled to open later today, but I must warn you, it's one of the toughest we've had in quite some time." "How tough are we talking?" Sam tilted his head slightly, genuinely curious. She pulled up a screen. "We don't have too much detail, but according to the initial scan, it's classified as a peak, novice, rank rift. That means the recommended level to enter is 10. It's not a place for someone who just recently awakened." A peak rank, novice, rift, that was exactly what Sam wanted. "I'll be fine," he said with a confident smirk. "Just give me the info." The receptionist hesitated for a second longer before bowing her head. "Very well, but please be aware that multiple parties, including small guilds, will be entering. It won't be empty in there." "Noted. Thank you." A moment later, she handed him a small card the size of a credit card. A faint glow pulsed in the center of it. "You can tap this card to project a directional arrow. It'll guide you to the rift entrance." Sam nodded and took the card. "I hope to see you again," the receptionist added, her voice soft with genuine concern. "I hope so too," he said, pocketing the card before making his way out of the building. Name: Undead Graveyard. Rank: Novice. Recommended level: 10. That was the only information given on the rift, and that was all Sam needed. It was enough. If this didn't help him reach apprentice rank, then he'd either have to grind multiple rifts back-to-back or go all in and throw himself into the second layer of the Forsaken Realm. The second layer fascinated him the most, not just for its strength curve, but because it was unexplored territory for him. According to what Lily told him, every layer beyond the first had its own unique mechanic, something special that made it unlike anything else. And the deeper the layer, the more deadly the mechanic became. He especially wondered what the mechanic of the fourth one was, that it stopped Awakeners for so long. Still, that was for later. For now, Sam had a rift to conquer. He boarded a bullet train heading toward the outer ring. As the engine roared to life and began gliding across the tracks, Sam tapped the card. A faint blue arrow shimmered in front of him, pointing directly toward his destination. "We are heading toward the first outer ring. Please confirm that you are an official Awakener." The robotic voice echoed throughout the train, and Sam leaned back against the seat, arms crossed, thinking deeply. "All right," he murmured, "just need to do what I do best, kill and absorb." The receptionist had warned him about this rift being unusual. The most dangerous novice rift they'd seen in months. Sam couldn't help but wonder. Was that because the game's events were starting to trigger? Even though the protagonist no longer existed, Sam had the sense that the world would still follow the path of the game. Major events, chaos, hidden bosses, they would all happen regardless. You have a bad feeling about this. Sam rolled his eyes. It was the second time that system message had shown up. But just like before, he ignored it. A few hours passed, and eventually the train slowed to a stop. We have arrived at the outer ring. Please depart. Sam stood up. There weren't many people on the train, but a few other awakeners exited alongside him. Some looked like solo adventurers. Others were clearly in small teams. As Sam stepped onto the platform, he found himself on a flat, grassy plain stretching far in every direction. In the distance, a dense forest loomed, and the arrow projected from his card pointed straight toward it. Without hesitation, he sprinted forward, feet barely touching the ground as he crossed the distance with practiced ease. The forest closed in around him, shadows stretching from every direction. Eventually, he reached a small clearing. There it was, the rift. It looked like a floating vertical slit, but closed like an eye that hadn't opened yet. Dormant, but humming with power. Not late. Good, Sam noted. Others had already arrived before him. Dozens, in fact. Most were standing in formation, clearly organized parties. Another guy? Wait, is he alone? Is he insane? He's going to die in there. Sam heard them, but he ignored them. Instead, he walked to a quiet spot near the edge of the clearing and sat down, legs crossed. His crimson eyes scanned the surroundings calmly. He began thinking about how to approach the rift. I'll need to test all of my abilities, he thought, but I should also focus on grinding. My class takes more monsters than any other to level up. He activated Hell Mode Analysis and scanned every single person in the clearing. As expected, none of them noticed. They were all level 10. That told Sam two things. They were here either to attempt their advancement task, or they had chosen to remain at the peak of the novice rank permanently. Some people actually live their entire lives like that, avoiding danger and further advancement by choosing stability over strength. Sam didn't get it. He couldn't understand why anyone would willingly remain weak. He wasn't here to survive. He was here to rise. 20 minutes passed. Then, fwish, fwish, bang. The air suddenly shifted, and reality itself seemed to ripple as space tore open. The rift, which had remained sealed until now, suddenly opened wide, a crack of energy expanding with a sharp burst. A flood of dark, malevolent energy rushed out of it, coating the area in a thick, heavy aura that made it hard to breathe for the weaker ones present. Sam stood up slowly. She wasn't lying. This rift is actually weird, Sam thought. The aura is strong. The aura leaking out of the crimson portal ahead wasn't normal. It was suffocating. The kind of suffocating that made even peak level 10 novice rank awakeners, the ones who'd seen and done this dozens of times, tense up and instinctively reach for their weapons. What the hell is this? I've been doing this for years, and I've never seen anything like that. Murmurs filled the air, and tension ran high. Nobody moved closer. Even without touching the portal, everyone could feel the twisted energy that poured from it like invisible fire. But while everyone else hesitated, Sam already knew what this meant. So, it begins. The game's events are finally starting. In every apocalyptic scenario like this one, it always started small. Strange anomalies, stronger monsters, new mechanics. Then it snowballed. Minor chaos turned to disaster, and disaster turned to the end of the world. The only reason the world was even salvageable in the Hell Mode route was because the main character could reset every time they died. Sam had no such luxury. In his case, the only path forward was through mint survival, no matter the odds. He didn't need to guess. The moment his feet had stopped in front of the portal, a familiar blue panel blinked to life in front of him. Hell Mode Analysis. This rift is corrupted. The monsters inside will all be level 10 and much stronger than usual. But it doesn't matter. Just kill them all, smiley face. Sam cracked a smile at the words. He hadn't planned on doing anything different anyway. If the monsters were stronger, that just meant more experience for him to absorb. More blood, more chaos, more strength. Behind him, the voices grew louder. Nope. Hell no. One of the guys in a nearby party said, already walking away. Pack it up, boys. We're not dying for nothing. I agree, another group leader added, sighing. This was supposed to be a high-difficulty rift, yeah, but this is something else. People began to leave in groups, each with the same hesitant expression. These were people who had chosen to stay novice rank their whole lives. Not because they were weak, but because they didn't want to risk more. Corrupted Rift? That didn't fall under safe. Only a handful remained. Sam, a few smaller parties, and one group that stood out more than the others, 10 Awakeners, dressed in red and black, with a strange military-style uniform and flame-themed insignias. Never back down, never what? One of them shouted suddenly. Never give up, the rest shouted in sync, striking a dramatic pose. Sam blinked. What the hell is that? The one leading them was probably their commander. Crimson uniform, long red coat, fiery aura around his shoulders. For the sake of the Inferno Guild, he shouted, voice full of fire, we shall conquer this rift. No one but us can do it. Sam raised a brow but didn't say anything. It wasn't like he could ignore them. They were among the last people left here, but he wasn't interested. Instead, he took a deep breath and stepped forward. The portal loomed ahead, twisting slowly, as if reacting to his presence. It didn't roar or screech, but the pressure around it grew thicker. Wait, he's going in? Alone. Suddenly, a dozen sets of eyes locked onto him. Sam could feel the weight of their gazes. But more than that, he could feel the subtle touch of scanning abilities trying to probe his stats. So I can feel it too. Must be thanks to being a Primordial. Nobody could hide their scans from him anymore. Not with what he was. Their probing attempts might have gone unnoticed by someone else, but Sam could feel every one of them like needles poking at his back. He's level 4? You gotta be kidding. Leader, should we stop him? He's gonna get himself killed. No, the Inferno Guild Novice Party leader replied, tone much more serious this time. He's made his choice. Let's see if he survives it. Sam didn't wait for their judgment. He stepped forward, one foot after the other, until, finally, whoosh, he disappeared into the portal. Everything around him vanished instantly. The noise, the tension, the people. What replaced, it was a brief moment of weightlessness, as if he were being pulled through a swirling tunnel of shadows. Just like when he'd entered the first layer, he floated through an empty void. But unlike back then, panels appeared in his mind before he even touched the ground. Name, Undead Graveyard, Corrupted, recommended level. Honestly, even a level 10 novice wouldn't be able to do it. Then the ground slammed up to meet him. Bam! He landed in the middle of an eerie silence. Cold air brushed against his skin, and as he looked up, he understood why the rift had its name. Tombstones. Hundreds of them, maybe even thousands. He stood in the center of a massive graveyard, the stone markers crooked and aged, many shattered, others barely visible through the fog. The air shimmered slightly, corrupted energy distorting the space in strange waves. Sam narrowed his eyes. You feel its gaze on you. Huh. Seeing this weird panel, Sam suddenly remembered. The first time he saw one of the "you have a bad feeling about this" panels, it was just before entering the first layer. Then he'd seen it again during the train ride to this rift. The pattern was obvious. This bad feeling was real, and every time it happened, something twisted the world around him, reshaping events into the worst possible outcomes. It could be hell mode, twisting things behind the scenes to ensure his suffering, but he wasn't taking this lightly anyway. Spatial inventory, Sam muttered. In the next second, he reached into the void and pulled out the Primordial sword. The blade shimmered with an odd darkness, one that seemed to shift between black and deep violet. As he held it, the air around him subtly bent. All right, he whispered. Let's do this. Rifts weren't as big as the layers in the Forsaken Realm, but some were still massive in size. That said, this wasn't about exploration. To Sam, the sole goal was killing everything that moved and gaining enough experience to evolve past the novice rank. And most importantly, corrupted rifts? He'd never heard of them before. Even after pouring hours into the game and reading forums, nothing like this had ever been mentioned, which probably meant this was something unique to Hell Mode, something nobody else had lived long enough to talk about. With sword in hand, Sam moved forward, deeper into the graveyard. He walked past crooked gravestones, crushed coffins, and strange, whispering shadows that moved in the fog just beyond sight. He wasn't worried, not yet, but he kept alert, just in case. He decided to check on his skills. Opening his status window, he scrolled down and focused on the 3 fully evolved abilities he had. Primordial Sword Technique. Rank Forsaken. Description: no one can rival your sword technique, for a primordial should stand above all others. Hell Mode Analysis. For some reason, you have the feeling that this isn't all of it. The name of the rift wasn't exaggerated or metaphorical, it was literal. This place truly was a massive graveyard. Tombstones stretched endlessly into the mist, and far off in the distance, at the very end of the gloomy horizon, stood a towering black cathedral. I guess I won't have to search for the boss this time, Sam thought, eyeing the ominous silhouette. None of the other parties that had been present earlier had entered yet. Most of them were likely still discussing plans or considering whether it was even worth the risk. As for those who had walked away, they were probably already reporting the discovery of this strange, new, corrupted rift to the authorities. Sam, however, had no such intentions. He was alone, and that suited him just fine. Fwish, fwish, fwish. The graves around him began to tremble. Dirt cracked, stone lids shifted, and then, rising from the earth, came dozens upon dozens of skeletons, each one corrupted and cloaked in a dark mist. Finally, Sam muttered under his breath, spinning the primordial sword once in his palm as he got ready. He was prepared for a fight, but in the back of his mind, a thought lingered. Would his stats hold up? Despite wielding Forsaken rank skills, his constitution was still only 8. If the eternal barrier was somehow broken, even a single hit could be lethal. And his soul stat wasn't all that high either, which made him wonder if it would affect the performance of Abyssal Obliteration. Still, hesitation had no place here. The undead had already surrounded him. Undead Skeleton, Corrupted, Level 10, Hell Mode Analysis. They aren't in the underworld somehow. It's fine, just kill them again. Sam took a step forward and lunged at the nearest skeleton without waiting. Each of the undead held a different weapon. Some had rusted swords, others carried spears or axes. But the most noticeable detail was the corruption itself. The bones of each monster were covered in dark, jagged cracks, like something unnatural was eating away at them from within. So that's what the corruption looks like, Sam noted, just as his sword moved. Slash! The moment his blade connected with the first skeleton, it was cleaved perfectly in half. Its bones shattered, scattering like dry twigs. But that wasn't all. The strike released a small shockwave of dark energy that burst outward, sending the surrounding skeletons flying back in a wave of black pressure. Sam smiled. That reaction, that synergy between his sword and the shadow element, it was exactly what he was hoping for. Looks like this is going to be another graveyard after all, he muttered as he turned, his shoes pressing into the cracked stone beneath him. He could already tell that unless something unexpected happened, Eternal Barrier wouldn't even activate. He might not get hit once. That thought made his smile deepen. With one arm raised high, shadow aura began to pulse around him. Abyssal Obliteration. A portal of darkness tore open above him, swirling with chaos. The undead paused for a second, tilting their heads up with their hollow eye sockets fixated on the phenomenon. But before they could even react properly, PFTFTFTFTFTFTF. A barrage of shadow bullets erupted from the portal like a machine gun. Each bullet slammed into the skeletons below, punching holes through their bodies and breaking them down until they were nothing more than piles of scattered bones. Sam didn't need to aim. The bullets were fast, relentless, and almost unervingly accurate. Eventually, when only silence remained, he slowly lowered his hand. "Yeah, that eats up a lot of soul," he muttered, breathing out. It wasn't fatigue exactly. It wasn't physically tired, but he could feel that his internal reserves had taken a hit. Still, he had no complaints. Being able to freely use his Forsaken rank skills in a real fight like this was satisfying. He lifted the primordial sword once more, and in one simple motion, It absorbed the cores of the broken skeletons lying all around him. He could feel the power rush into him, and his crimson eyes glowed faintly in response. But then, ding! Congratulations to Sam Walker for leveling up to level 5 of the novice rank. Please select a skill. Perfect. In this world, every 5 levels granted a skill choice. So at level 5, and again at level 10 of each rank after the advancement task, you were given a guaranteed opportunity to grow stronger without needing scrolls or luck. 3 options would typically appear, and you were expected to choose wisely. It was a system that suited Sam perfectly. With his understanding of evolution paths, he could always pick based on what a skill might become in the future. But today, things were different. Choose a card, Primordial. 3 cards suddenly materialized in front of Sam, floating in midair. But the weirdest thing about this abnormal skill selection process was the cards weren't even face up. He couldn't see what skill they offered. All 3 cards were a deep violet color, but each one had a different symbol etched into the back. The first showed a skull, the second a sword, and the third a dark flame. He naturally tried to turn the cards or get behind them. Nothing. His hand phased through. Even circling around didn't help. The cards followed him perfectly, always staying aligned to his front like they were locked in place. He sighed. Of course, things are going too smoothly. Still, he wasn't one to waste time on complaints. So, I have to choose one of these blindly. The undead around him were gone for now, and he had a moment of peace. He could use it. He looked at the sword symbol in the center. If it's related to the primordial sword, then I'm all in. Without hesitation, he reached forward and pointed to the card with the sword icon. You have selected your card. The other 2 vanished in a burst of dark flame, and the remaining card slowly turned to reveal its contents. Shadow Tendrils. Rank Epic. Description: Tendrils come out of the primordial sword to bind enemies and keep them in place. Hell Mode Analysis. Kinky. Sam let out a short smile at the Hell Mode commentary, then grabbed the card and crushed it in his hand. The energy flowed into him instantly. Ding! Congratulations to Sam Walker for learning the skill. Shadow Tendrils, Epic. That could definitely come in handy against powerful enemies, especially if he needed to immobilize a boss or disrupt an ambush. He'd have to test it later. The second layer was waiting, and he already knew that surprises were guaranteed. Even with all of his new strength, caution remained his best weapon. Boom! Boom! But suddenly, a pair of explosions echoed from behind him. Sam turned. In the distance, just beyond the edge of the graveyard's entrance, he saw them. The same 10-member Awakener squad from before. The ones who had shouted their guild motto so loudly. They'd finally made their entrance. Sam didn't stick around to greet them. Without a word, he turned away and kept walking, his steps slow but steady. His eyes locked onto the cathedral ahead. That was where he needed to go. Ding! Congratulations to Sam Walker for leveling up to level 6 of the novice rank. Ding! Congratulations to Sam Walker for leveling up to level 7 of the novice rank. After learning his new skill, Sam continued pressing forward, cutting down every undead creature in his path. The result was immediate. With each swing of his primordial sword, he cleared groups of monsters, and in return, the experience kept flowing in like a river. 2 more levels just like that. It turned out that the rift was perfect for him, not just because the monsters were all high level, but because there were so many of them. The deeper he pushed into the graveyard, the more undead appeared to stop him. And yet none of them could even slow him down. The sheer quantity of enemies might have overwhelmed any other novice awakener, but not Sam. With the raw power of his sword and his forsaken rank skills, he carved through them effortlessly. If anything, the flood of monsters only helped. The primordial class required him to fight enemies technically stronger than him in order to evolve further, and this rift was handing them to him on a silver platter. Slash! Another clean strike. The sword carved through bone like butter, the shockwave from the swing rattling the undead nearby and shaking the dirt under his feet. Sam kept moving, undeterred. The cathedral was getting closer. Based on how many monsters he'd already cut down, he figured he could maybe gain 1 or 2 more levels before reaching the final area. If I want to reach level 10 before advancing, I'll probably need to do something else after this, Sam thought. Still, he couldn't complain. Every kill made him stronger, and each time he absorbed a monster's essence, the same thought would echo in his mind. More. It was an addictive feeling, power surging into him with each enemy slain. The corrupted undead were perfect fuel. He didn't stop until... Swish! Bam! Suddenly, a faint flash appeared around him, and an invisible dome shimmered briefly in the air, just for a second. His eternal barrier had triggered. It's been hit. Sam immediately froze. His eyes narrowed. He turned in place, searching, but nothing. He scanned the area again. There were no enemies nearby. Nothing in the fog. No monsters. No threats in sight. That could only mean one thing. A boss, Sam muttered, instantly switching into a combat stance. He knew he still had 49 hits left before the barrier shattered, but he didn't want to waste even one of them. If the boss could bypass his line of sight and land a clean strike on him without even revealing itself, that meant it was dangerous. And maybe worse, it was smart. Sam stood still for a few minutes, eyes sharp, breathing quiet. He waited, prepared for anything. But before the boss showed itself again, he heard something else. Footsteps. Distant, staggering, uneven. Sam turned, and there they were, the squad of 10 novice awakeners who had entered the rift earlier. Except now, there were only 7. This was our worst mistake. One of them mumbled. As soon as we get out of here, I'm going through with my advancement task. Screw being weak. Another groaned. Ah shit. We're the only ones left now. Please tell me the boss isn't worse than the rest. 3 of them had already died, and that was with Sam unintentionally helping them by wiping out the undead ahead. Without him, they might have all been wiped out before making it halfway through. Look, it's that kid, one of them pointed ahead. He's still alive. What the hell? Wasn't he level 4? How? Sam could feel their inspect skills being used on him. He's level 7 now. That doesn't explain how he made it this far while we lost 3 people. Who cares? Maybe we cleared most of the way, and he just got lucky. Sam raised an eyebrow at that. He was ahead of them. Logically, that should mean he was the one clearing the path, not the other way around. But he didn't spend too long trying to understand their logic. It didn't matter. Instead, he turned his attention back to the real problem, the boss. Why is he just standing there? Too scared to move? Maybe. Another chuckled. I love seeing cocky newbies get what they deserve. Sam's eyes darted again, carefully checking every angle. And then, fwish, slash. A dark aura surged behind the group. A figure suddenly appeared, floating just above the ground, holding a massive curved scythe. Silent and ominous. Sam saw it before anyone else. Damn, he muttered. Swash. The Reaper swung its scythe with one fluid motion, cleanly decapitating 2 of the remaining awakeners. Holy shit. Oh my god. Screams erupted. Panic followed. The group backed away in terror. Sam, however, saw his chance. Grave Reaper, corrupted boss. Level 10. Description: a Reaper that oversees all undead in this cemetery. Killing it will stop the undead from rising. Hell mode analysis: it can become invisible. Keep it in your sight at all times. He didn't hesitate. Sam dashed forward like a blur, sword drawn, eyes locked on the Reaper as it tried to vanish again. Fwish! The Reaper raised its scythe, attempting to deflect, but bam! The sheer force of Sam's strike released a wave of energy, knocking the nearby awakeners backward and stunning the Reaper mid-motion. It staggered for just a second. That was enough. You're a boss, Sam grinned, but you're still not strong enough. He swung again, faster, sharper, and the Reaper's head was gone before it could vanish. The body fell silently to the ground. A fight that could have taken an entire party over half an hour ended in less than 5 seconds. Fwish! Sam absorbed the Reaper's core. Energy surged inside of him, but no level up. TCH figures. Still, he wasn't bothered. He picked up the Reaper's weapon, a jagged black scythe, and tossed it casually into his spatial inventory. Then, without sparing a second glance at the shaken awakeners behind him, he kept walking toward the cathedral, quietly humming to himself. At this point, Killing monsters felt normal. Even seeing other Awakeners die didn't faze him much. If he didn't kill them, he couldn't absorb them. So why waste time thinking about it? This kid is strong, one of the remaining Awakeners whispered, pale-faced. Doesn't matter, their leader growled. The Inferno Guild counts on us. We'll finish this rift. He's not taking all the glory. Why, yeah. The others mumbled, clearly shaken. They'd seen how dangerous the monsters in this rift were, far beyond what they were used to in novice-level zones. And yet this so-called level 7 beginner had just soloed the boss like it was nothing. No way they'd let him take all the credit. But Sam didn't care. He walked forward without looking back. The description had made it clear. Killing the Grave Reaper would stop the undead from rising, which meant his grinding time was over, but so were the distractions. He wasn't sure whether that was a good thing or a bad thing. Letting the boss live could have meant more XP. But letting it roam freely was a mistake he didn't want to make. Either way, it was too late to change that now. After 10 minutes of silent walking, Sam finally arrived at the steps of the cathedral. As expected, a towering wall of mist blocked the entrance, an obvious transition point. Beyond it lay the final boss, the true end of the rift. Sam stepped forward, stopping just before the wall of mist. And then, you have a bad feeling about this. Sam stared at the message. Ah shit, here we go again. For the third time now, the panel appeared. You have a bad feeling about this. Sam let out a quiet breath as he read the message. At this point, he didn't even need to ask why. Something was bound to happen. It always did when this panel showed up. He slowly turned his head and looked behind him. The remaining Awakeners from the Inferno Guild were still following. 5 of them now. Their movements were steady, and their eyes were locked forward. Even after losing half of their group, they hadn't backed down. If anything, their determination burned brighter than before. Sam could already guess their goal. They wanted to be part of something big. If they could be the first to clear this strange, corrupted rift, one that might become a global incident once news of it spread, they could ride that fame all the way to the top. Instant recognition, power, maybe even funding to build their own guild someday. They weren't wrong, either. The stakes were real. But Sam turned back toward the silver mist that marked the cathedral entrance, his mind working quietly. The bad feeling, panel, it could have been about a lot of things. Maybe the boss waiting on the other side was incredibly powerful. Or maybe the true danger was closer than he thought, like the Awakeners behind him trying to kill him for all the glory. He didn't trust them. He didn't hate them either. He just preferred to handle things his own way. And if they really wanted to throw themselves into danger, fine by him. Sam turned to face them, voice calm. Stay here. The sudden shift in his tone made them freeze. For a brief moment, none of them said anything, their eyes locking with his, and that's when they saw it. The faint crimson aura flaring from his pupils. Unnatural. Intense. One of them scoffed. What do you mean, stay here? We were just caught off guard last time. Don't get ahead of yourself, kid. Sam didn't respond. He'd already turned away. Entering the boss room alone was the smartest option. If the boss really was dangerous, he wouldn't have to worry about friendly fire or distractions. If the bad feeling was about betrayal, then distancing himself would avoid any backstabbing. He didn't say anything more. He simply stepped into the silver mist and vanished. Here we go, boys. One of them yelled, excitement pulsing in his voice. It's actually time to prove ourselves. This will be the legacy of our squad. Once we hit apprentice rank, we'll build our own guild. Hell yeah. Fueled by hype and ambition, they all charged after him, straight into the mist. On the other side, Sam emerged into the cathedral. It was a grand hall of shadows and silence. Towering walls of stone stretched far above, with rows of ruined pews scattered around the cracked marble floor. Massive stained glass windows filtered dull gray light through the fog, giving the entire place a haunted glow. But before he could take in much more, boom, boom, boom. All the windows shattered at once, shards of glass raining down like hail. A dark figure materialized above them, floating silently. Cloaked in shadows, it raised a staff in one hand and slowly descended, landing gently on the ground with glowing purple eyes fixed on the group. Sam narrowed his eyes and gripped the hilt of his primordial sword. Undead Archmage corrupted. Level 10. Description: an Archmage wielding powerful dark magic and extremely proficient in necromancy. Hell mode analysis: it has an unavoidable attack, though I guess you don't need to worry about it too much. Sam stared at the panel without flinching. Behind him, the group of Awakeners stepped out of the mist one by one, faces lighting up with both shock and excitement. "All right, boys," the leader shouted, raising his sword high. "The beginning of our journey is now." And with that, they all charged ahead, weapons ready, no hesitation. Are they stupid? Fwish! Fwish! Boom! The Archmage raised its staff and, without so much as a warning, unleashed a massive wave of dark magic. A pulse of raw death energy swept across the entire cathedral. Boom! Sam's eternal barrier lit up briefly as it absorbed the hit. He didn't move. He didn't even flinch. But the others, they didn't stand a chance. Their weapons clattered to the ground, their bodies gone in an instant. Disintegrated, reduced to ash and shadow. "I did tell you to stay behind," Sam muttered, brushing dust off his shoulder. Then he smiled faintly. "My turn." The Archmage's eyes narrowed. It hovered back into the air, dark aura flaring wildly. The runes on its staff glowed with a purple-black light before it thrust the weapon forward. Fwish! Boom! Another beam of concentrated darkness shot towards Sam. This time, he didn't rely on the barrier. He raised his primordial sword, angled it just right, and clang! The beam struck the blade and split, diverted instantly. The power spread across the surface of the sword before vanishing harmlessly. The weapon didn't even budge. Of course it didn't. The primordial sword wasn't just any weapon. It was a masterpiece forged for something far above this world. As long as Sam held it, nothing could break it. His eyes sharpened. Abyssal obliteration. He raised his free hand, and a shadow portal opened above him. Dozens upon dozens of shadow bullets shot out like a storm. The first wave hit the Archmage directly, causing it to stagger in the air as several impacts tore into its rotted robe and ancient bones. It quickly began to dodge the next wave, weaving through the storm with surprising speed for something undead. Sam eventually lowered his hand as his mana reserves dipped. "I'll be able to summon more portals once I get more soul, but for now, that's all I can do." The fight shifted into close range. Clash! Slash! Bang! Sam lunged and swung. The Archmage floated higher or blinked back to avoid the strikes, always keeping its distance. In return, it launched spell after spell, dark beams, exploding skulls, cursed chains, all meant to overwhelm him. But Sam wasn't fazed. Most would have been dead by now. But he had no intention of dying. Not here. Not now. Not when the game was only getting started. Then the thought hit him. He had one more skill, one the Archmage hadn't seen yet. Here goes nothing. He lowered into position, blade sideways. Shadow tendrils. Immediately, 5 dark tendrils burst out from his sword, writhing violently in the air. They shot forward at the Archmage. The boss reacted fast, launching another beam of darkness at them. 2 tendrils disintegrated mid-air. "So they can be destroyed," Sam noted calmly. But the remaining 3 slammed into the Archmage and coiled around its body, wrapping tightly around its arms, legs, and chest. The undead flailed, but the tendrils didn't budge. It was caught. Sam didn't hesitate. He walked forward slowly, sword in hand, and let the tendrils drag the Archmage down toward him like a chained offering. When it was close enough, fwish! Slash! Sam cut it in half, clean and efficient. The body fell to the floor, already unraveling. He stepped forward and watched the last traces of magic fade from its shattered staff. "If this is just the beginning," he murmured, "then humanity is really screwed." As the tendrils vanished, Sam reached down and picked up the Archmage's core. Without needing to be told, the primordial sword absorbed it, humming quietly with power. Ding! Congratulations to Sam Walker for leveling up to level 8 of the novice rank. Nice, he smiled. Only 2 more levels remained before he could take on his advancement task. After that, he'd be free to form his guild. And soon after, he'd dive into the second layer. But before leaving, something else caught his attention. Just where the Archmage had fallen, two faint lights were shimmering in the shadows. Two loots had dropped. Archmage staff. Rank rare. Hell mode analysis. Probably worth more than the fearsome ring. Big money. Right next to it lay something even more interesting. A book. The Art of Necromancy. Rank. Legendary. Hell mode analysis. Someone with a class related to that could use this book to learn the undead revival skill. Sam crouched beside the glowing items, raising an eyebrow as he looked at the book. The black leather cover had silver inlays in the shape of skeletal hands, and just holding it felt like grasping ancient knowledge. What about me? Can I learn it? Sam asked curiously, already half knowing the answer. No, TCH figures. But you'll get something else, smiley face. Oh, he stared at the message a second longer. Well, that works too. Still, both drops were amazing. A rare staff and a legendary skill book? That wasn't something a typical novice rank rift should be handing out. Not even close. Even if Sam couldn't use the book, its value would be enormous. It could be sold to a necromancer-type awakener, or even auctioned for a small fortune. And the staff, well, that alone could probably fund a little bit of his guild. Money had always been his biggest weakness, after all. With a satisfied nod, he slipped both items into his spatial inventory, then turned to face the glowing crimson portal that had just appeared at the end of the cathedral. The rift was over. As expected, he hadn't reached level 10 yet, but Sam wasn't disappointed. He leveled up 4 times, acquired a powerful new skill, tested his potential, secured valuable loot, and most of all, he now understood something important. The real events of the game had started. With that thought lingering in his mind, Sam stepped through the crimson portal. Outside the rift, the clearing was far more crowded than when Sam had entered. Dozens upon dozens of people had gathered around the corrupted rift's entrance. Some were reporters with cameras, others were spectators. But most notable among them were the top-tier individuals, guild leaders, high-ranking awakeners, and elite scouts from all across the continent. The sudden appearance of a corrupted rift had been enough to throw the entire region into emergency response mode. At the front of the crowd stood a tall man clad in a polished uniform trimmed with gold, one of the generals of the Inferno Guild. His expression was confident as he addressed the cameras and those around him. "We sent our strongest novice rank team to investigate this new rift," he declared with authority. "They will clear it. The Inferno Guild stands firm, even in the face of the unknown." He was clearly trying to maintain morale, but the tension was thick. The appearance of a corrupted rift was no minor event. It was something that could destabilize many. That was why so many of the world's most powerful guilds had rushed here as soon as they heard the word corrupted. Among the arriving elite were the Union Guild, Eclipse Guild, Overlord Guild, and others, each led by influential figures that took time to come here. That also meant that David Union was here. He stood near the front of the crowd with his daughter, Alicia, at his side. "Dad," Alicia asked, noticing the strange look on his face. David was frowning, not in confusion, but in recognition. Why would an ascendant look so unsettled by a mere novice rank rift? She tugged on his sleeve, and he blinked, as if waking from a trance. "It's nothing. Just remembered something, that's all." But in truth, he hadn't. The moment the term corruption was mentioned, something had clicked in his mind. The prophecy, David thought to himself, fuck, it's starting. He wasn't the only one. Every guild leader present felt it, though none said anything out loud. They all shared the same heavy silence, staring at the portal like it was a loaded gun aimed at their world. Then, whoom, the portal flickered. Its light began to dim. "Yes," the Inferno Guild general roared. "They've done it. The rift is cleared." People cheered. If the rift was closing, it meant one thing. Someone had beaten it. If a rift wasn't cleared fast enough, or if everyone who entered it was wiped out, there was the chance of a breakthrough that leaked more monsters to the real world. And just a second later, the figure of a young man emerged from the fading light. Sam stepped out. His eyes scanned the crowd quickly. Hundreds of eyes turned to him. He immediately recognized several faces including David Union. He also saw Alicia standing at his side. She waved lightly, confused but smiling. Sam waved back, expression neutral. As he did, a new crimson message appeared before his eyes. Hell mode analysis. Don't you see? They're all scared of something. Scared of what? You don't know yet. 1. Great. He dropped his hand and resumed walking forward casually. Someone made it out. The rift's been cleared. I guess the Inferno Guild really did it. Murmurs swept through the crowd. But then, confusion. The portal behind Sam pulsed once more, then dimmed entirely and disappeared. That only happened when everyone alive who entered had already left. And, slowly, the realization hit. There was no team behind Sam. He was the only one who had made it out. Wait, where's the Inferno Guild squad? Don't tell me that it didn't survive. Eyes widened. Mouths dropped open. Oscar, the Inferno Guild general, took a step forward, eyes wide with disbelief. Our best novice team, all of them gone. He scanned the field. Sam stood alone. No injuries. No limping. No signs of exhaustion. Just a casual stance and a calm face. The reality set in. Only one person had cleared the rift, and it wasn't their team. It was Sam. Oscar's jaw clenched. His pride stung like a fresh burn. He stomped forward, his aura flaring like fire. So you're telling me, he said, voice booming, that you, a mere level 8 awakener, cleared this entire rift while our elite team died? The question wasn't even a question. It was an accusation. Sam met his eyes and shrugged. Yeah. He gave a small smile. I told them not to fight the boss. They didn't listen. Got wiped out instantly. My bad. That simple sentence hit Oscar like a slap to the face. You little. He lunged forward, aura bursting around him in a storm of flame and fury. Sam's eyes flicked upward as a system window popped up. Name, Oscar Windshield. Rank, Expert. Level, 6. Class. Hell mode analysis. An extremely prideful guy that doesn't let anything hurt his ego or the reputation of the guild he's part of. Sam thought. That explains it. He didn't even resist, since he quite literally couldn't. Oscar grabbed him by the shirt and lifted him into the air, eyes burning with rage. The man was bald, his face weathered by years of battle, and right now, he looked ready to kill. But Sam? He stared back with a blank expression, completely calm. Anyone else in the novice rank would be terrified that an expert rank tried to attack them. Yet Sam remained so unbothered that it actually annoyed Oscar even more. Many of the other awakeners were taken aback by the sudden aggression. Dad, do something! Alicia shouted, trying to intervene, but David stopped her. There's no need, he replied quietly, eyes narrowing. Sam is different. He couldn't explain why, but something told him that intervening would be wrong. Oscar roared and drew his arm back, gathering flaming aura into his fist. I'll end this. The blow came down, fast and deadly. Bam! It landed squarely on Sam's chest. Or rather, it landed on the transparent shield that shimmered between them. Oscar's fist stopped instantly. Eternal Barrier had activated. His flames danced along the surface, but they couldn't touch Sam. No matter what Oscar did, he couldn't penetrate the Eternal Barrier. I just put this here to remind that Hell mode analysis is basically Sam's consciousness, meaning that it is literally him. That is why it keeps saying, is that all? Sam muttered calmly as Oscar's flaming fist collided with the Eternal Barrier. The force behind the punch was enough to shake the air around them, a wave of pressure blowing dust and debris outward. But for Sam, the impact felt like nothing. The translucent shield around him didn't even ripple. That was the strength of Eternal Barrier, a Forsaken rank skill that could block any attack. Its description wasn't vague or metaphorical. It was absolute. Even if someone launched an attack strong enough to blow apart a continent, as long as it hit Sam directly, the barrier would absorb it and treat it like a single strike. That was the terrifying nature of the skill. Invincible, but with limits. The barrier could tank 50 hits every 30 minutes. And while it could block anything, even the weakest punches counted as hits, meaning someone fast enough could shatter it with sheer volume rather than power. Still, no one around him knew that. And Sam had no intention of telling them. You, Oscar growled, crimson flames escaping from his mouth and eyes as rage consumed him. The Inferno Guild only accepted awakeners with fire-based classes or affinities. Oscar wasn't just a general. He was an embodiment of their ideals. Fire, power, dominance. Yet now, his flames couldn't even touch Sam. Fwish! Slam! He punched again, harder this time. The sound echoed, but the result was the same. Nothing. You. Bam. Little. Bam. Fuck. Bam. 3 more punches, each more explosive than the last, but none had any effect. The onlookers had gasped at first, worried the situation might escalate, but after the first few strikes, they started realizing something important. Sam wasn't flinching, not even once. Oscar's fury continued to grow, but his pride couldn't allow him to back down. Finally, with a frustrated roar, he grabbed Sam and hurled him toward a tree at the edge of the clearing. Bam! Sam's back hit the trunk with a dull thud. Leaves rustled, bark cracked, but the eternal barrier held firm, shielding him from any harm. A quiet ding rang in Sam's mind. Eternal barrier, 42/50ths. 8 it's gone already. Not terrible, but meant the skill wasn't invincible forever. Still, it was more than enough for this situation. Even an expert, rank like Oscar, couldn't crack it. That gave Sam a moment of relief, just enough breathing room to think about his next step. His priority now wasn't dealing with Oscar or this crowd. It was reaching level 10. And with so many powerful awakeners standing around, Sam figured he might as well ask directly. He dusted himself off and walked toward a certain man who had been watching everything from a few feet away. Hey, Sam said, eyes locking onto David Union. I've got a question. David smiled slightly, his expression amused. He had watched everything without interference, arms crossed, eyes flickering with interest. What is it? He replied, a strange glint in his gaze. I want to reach level 10 as fast as possible. Any advice? Alicia, who stood beside her father, tilted her head, surprised by how blunt the question was. David tapped his chin thoughtfully. Usually I'd recommend the path with the highest risk of death. Dad! Alicia smacked his side playfully, then winced, realizing she hurt herself more than she hurt him. Ow! David chuckled. There are a few rifts I could suggest, he finally said. I could allow you to enter them to reach level 10. Sam nodded. I'd appreciate that. He didn't care about danger. Not really. Strength was what he needed. Everything else was secondary. And if he could get that strength by pushing himself through deadly rifts, then so be it. Also, the fact that he had survived this corrupted rift alone, while a full squad from the Inferno Guild had been wiped out, that would boost his reputation. Big time. Sam allowed himself a small grin. Everything was going according to plan. After a few more minutes, the reporters began to disperse. Interviews had ended, photos were taken, and most awakeners returned to their business. Even Oscar, after suffering the humiliation of failing to harm a mere novice, had enough. He turned to Sam one last time, voice seething with hatred. I'll remember this, Sam Walker. He barked as a fiery aura surrounded his legs, propelling him into the sky like a rocket. The Inferno Guild never forgets. I still don't know who you are, dude, Sam replied casually, waving him off. That was that. But before Sam could move on, he realized he needed to rest. He also wanted to spend some time evolving shadow tendrils. Recovery was important, and planning came next. He turned his back to David and Alicia and began walking away. But behind him, something shifted. Fwish! A sword materialized in David's hand. The weapon shimmered unnaturally, almost like space itself distorted around it. David took a single step forward, focusing a massive amount of power into his arm, so much that the very air bent around him. The atmosphere cracked faintly under the pressure. Then, slash! He swung. A blur of light and power rushed forward in a clean arc, aimed straight at Sam's unprotected back. But tink! The sword struck something invisible midair. Eternal barrier. It didn't even flicker. Incredible, David whispered, staring at the invisible shield. This barrier really can't be broken. Sam stopped walking and turned his head slightly, crimson eyes glowing with calm confidence. "Did you think it wouldn't be active while my guard was down?" he asked coldly. David just smiled. "Just wanted to test something," he said, spinning the sword once before letting it vanish. "Anyway, as promised, I'll send you 3 level 10 rift locations. Should be enough to get you there." Sam stared for a moment, wondering what went on in David's head that made him so unpredictable. But he didn't push the thought too far. He simply nodded and handed over his contact info. David entered it quickly and also insisted Sam give it to Alicia, who grinned and accepted it without hesitation. "Keep in touch," she said with a light smile. With that out of the way, Sam walked to the nearest train station. He didn't hesitate, didn't look back. The faster he moved, the better. The train was sleek and humming with energy. He stepped aboard and sat down near the window. A moment later, the automated voice echoed. "We're now departing for the north region of the inner ring." Sam closed his eyes and leaned back in the seat, letting the rhythm of the train soothe his thoughts. So much had happened in such a short time. He never imagined a single rift would drag him into this much chaos. A corrupted zone, a full team wiped, guild leaders watching him, a new title as the sole survivor. But even so, there was no time to slow down. His path was set. He opened his eyes briefly and looked at the passing scenery, tall buildings, the fading sun, the winding tracks into the unknown. Then, like always, the system gave one final whisper. "The gears of fate are turning around you, Primordial." "I know that," Sam nodded as he closed his eyes once more. "But it doesn't matter. I just have to keep going."